Let's go, come on, get in, let's go. Pwah. They came one right after another.
Well, hello.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. Tonight, we're gonna use the Force a little bit. I'm going Han Solo for the first hour. Okay, and then Jordan's gonna join me for the second hour. All right, look, there's a lot of things that are important in the second hour, including like the market. Finally, someone confirmed, or a lot of people confirmed, yeah, they're totally wrong and stupid. The oil prices are gonna shoot up any second now for reasons we're gonna explain. You're thinking, well, they already shot up. No, much worse. And even if the war ends, let alone if the war continues, so oil, energy experts, et cetera, are going, what are the markets doing? Do they believe Donald Trump? Are they that crazy? And apparently the answer is yes, which is stunning. So that's a little later in the show, but in this hour, we find out a couple of things in that fake story about how JD Vance is against the war. Well, there's two critical facts in there that you should find out about. How are the populist Democrats doing? I'm gonna tell you that in just a second. Bernie Sanders takes on Chuck Schumer. Interesting. And then the most outrageous story of the day, in my opinion, now there's a litmus test for getting a green card, and that is pledging loyalty to America. I'm just kidding, obviously Israel. I'm not kidding about that. You have to basically say that you will not criticize Israel in order to be allowed as a legal resident in America, which is of course mental, means that Israel completely controls us. Nevertheless, people will pretend, no, it could have been anybody. Could have been anybody. So we'll get to that story in a little bit. But first, let's start out with the populist revolution. So we've got a little bit of a populist revolution on our hands, and I love it. So there are three guys who are running for Senate that have a couple of things in common. First of all, they're all Democrats running for the Senate. Second of all, they've all been attacked by the establishment. And third of all, they're now ahead in all their races. And I'm going to argue and perhaps prove to you right now that it's because they were attacked by the establishment, and in some cases attacked because they wouldn't bow their heads to either corporate donors or foreign governments. One foreign government in particular, Ireland. Just kidding, obviously Israel. No one bows their heads in this country to any other government other than Israel. So, but these three didn't. Let's see how it turned out. Let's start with Abdul El-Sayed. He's running for Senate in Michigan. And recently he was in a lot of trouble and controversy because he campaigned with Hassan Piker, who's a very, very naughty boy. He's my nephew. He has said some outrageous things, there's no question about that. That's kind of a thing that he does. But mainly he's known for being opposed to Israel. And man, the establishment media did not like that. And good news, since Abdul campaigned with him, now they're gonna get to smear Abdul, and that'll show him, will it? We're gonna find out in a minute, but first, let's show you Jake Tapper taking him on.
His rise as a prominent voice on the left is now driving a wedge between Democrats, and for good reason. Hassan Piker's past and present is checkered with controversial, if not outrageous, if not bigoted state comments like this one.
America deserved 9/11, dude. F it. I'm saying it. We totally brought it on ourselves, dude. Holy.
The ultra-Orthodox Jews leaving Israel, hilarious. Okay? If they serve in the military and then they get their untrained, inbred asses shipped into southern Lebanon, again, very funny.
You know, it's Hassan Piker calling Orthodox Jews inbred. Piker has also posted comments such as these, where he unequivocally sides with Hamas, calling them the lesser of two Israels compared to the lesser of two evils compared to the government of Israel. Piker has since apologized for his comments on 9/11, but he stood by the rest. He's accusing others of taking him out of context. In a Wall Street Journal op-ed, the leaders of the Democratic think tank Third Way write, quote, Mr. Piker is anti-American, anti-women, anti-Western, and anti-Semitic. No Democrat should engage with him. All should seek to push him to the fringe where he belongs, unquote. Hassan Piker just recently become an issue in Michigan. It's home to a competitive three-way Democratic primary for governor. Dr. Abdul Al-Sayed, one of the three candidates and a former CNN commentator, announced that Piker will join him for 2 rallies in April. His opponents quickly seized on that, slamming the decision as unacceptable.
Ooh, look at that. Hassan Piker saying that Israel might be worse than Hamas just because Israel has done 100 times the number of civilian deaths and at a worse civilian kill ratio than Hamas, hence they intended it. 83%, the worst of any terrorist group in the world. How dare you? Oh, we got Hassan, and now we got Abdul Al-Sayed. We're gonna sink him, man. We just told everybody that Hassan and Abdul are not controlled by Israel and they're bigots. And we'll throw in randomly against women from where? Doesn't matter. We're smearing. Third Way, a very important group. Followed by 3 people, that's why it's called Third Way, literally has no grassroots support at all. No one in the world cares about Third Way other than Washington. They're a corporate-backed group. They're pro-establishment, pro-Israel, and they're like, we're gonna eliminate the progressive Abdul Al-Sayed. He won't be able to, help people trying to defy corporate rule or Israeli rule. We got him, Jake, nice job. Way to smear Saeed. All right, we're gonna see if that worked. But what's funny is that that's CNN, but Fox News, which I hear is the opposite of CNN, had the same exact talking point when Abdul Al-Sayed went on their show. Let's watch.
Why saddle up with that individual?
Bill, at the end of the day, I don't go on any show where I agree with everybody. You and I clearly disagree on a number of things, including the war in Iran. To me, it's about speaking to a broader audience. I'm on this show right now because I'm wanting to speak to the broader audience who are getting a bum deal because of this war. And I'm wanting to speak with Hassan's audience too. So just because you invite somebody to campaign with you or you're engaging with them does not mean that you agree with them. Famously, the president had dinner with a known neo-Nazi among many, many others. This is about being able to bring people back into our politics. Every day, 30,000 people and counting tune in to Hassan's stream. A lot of folks who don't watch Fox News, they don't watch CNN, they don't watch MSNBC. They feel locked out of our politics by a politics that is more focused on corporations and their well-being than theirs.
I
want to answer your question. Bill, let me just
answer your question
that
you're making.
But the question, yes, it's an active decision to reach out to people who feel locked out of their politics to have a conversation, just like I'm making an active decision as somebody who's running in a Democratic primary to have a conversation on Fox News.
That's a brilliant answer by Abdul. So he's like, I'm talking to your hack ass, and you're way worse than Hassan. You're pro-war, you sell out this country for Israel, you're for every corporation that's robbing us blind, yet I'm still talking to you, and you're like one of the most corrupt people on earth. That's what I would have said, but Abdul was more polite, and that's wonderful, and he made a great point about, hey, Trump met with Nick Fuentes. Are you bothered by that, Bill Hemmer? No, it's Fox News, that's great. No, meeting with Fuentes, terrific. Meeting with Hassan, yes, to Israel. Hey, you know what? Fuentes is also against Israel. Wait till they find out. Then all of a sudden they might be upset at Trump. Okay, so beautifully done by Abdul, but overall, CNN, Fox News, just we always tell you, fake disagreements when it comes to supporting the establishment. Vote against the outsider populist, how dare he? Now, let's actually find out what Abdul Al-Sayed thinks. Forget what Hassan Piker said 7 years ago and trying to smear by proxy, etc. How's Abdul running this race? Why is he doing well? You're about to see how well he's doing in a second, and it's beautiful. But first, let's see what Abdul has to say.
My quick question was, explain to me why progressive is not a dirty word.
So in my case, I'm not focused on left or right. I think there are people who've been locked out of our politics, and there are people who will be keys. And that is true whether you're talking about the ability to afford your groceries, or afford a home, or afford transit, or to be able to know that your kid goes to a dignified school, or to be able to see a doctor. We are locked out. We do not have the means of being able to change the system when there's so much money and so much effort that's being put to make sure that we don't actually have those opportunities. So progressive, not progressive, left, right, you notice I don't usually use those words Because at the end of the day, I'm not interested in having a debate about the meanings of words. I'm interested in making sure that people have the basic needs of living life.
So that's a message that I agree with completely, and why I call Abdullah populist, because in the old days, it was all left-right fights. Now, he's saying, look, the whole country's against the war. The country doesn't want to fund Israel anymore. But also on bread and butter issues, the ones he addressed in that video, the prices are way too high. Trump said he was gonna handle it and he didn't, and prices are too high for the right wing as well as the left wing, as well as independents. So this is what it means to reach out to everyone and try to actually deliver for everyone. And that's what populists are about. Whereas the establishment is for delivering for only the donor class. And turns out people can tell, but the interesting part of this, guys, is that before he was attacked, Abdullah al-Sayed, by the establishment and by Israel First Forces, he was actually in third place. Let's look at the graph and see how he's doing since then. So this is all them going back and forth. McMorrow and Stevens are the other two people in the race. Abdullah al-Sayed is the purple line, and you see before the attacks on him in establishment media, right around the beginning of April, he's in third place. After the attacks, he picks up massive momentum. In fact, before the attacks started, they actually started in March. Not only was he in third place, he was down around 17 or so. He skyrockets in the first place. Thank you very much, CNN, Fox News, Third Way, the Israeli lobby, etc. Please keep telling Abdul is a naughty boy. He's trying to represent you Americans instead of Israel and healthcare companies. Please spread that message further. But now you can say, hey, maybe it's Michigan. They have a lot of Muslim voters. Maybe they noticed because of all the spotlight on him. Maybe it's working out differently in other races. Well, good news. We've got more facts for you guys, and we're gonna start talking about James Talarico now. He's in Texas, right? So in Texas, he was running against Crockett. So Jasmine Crockett's another Democrat. Now, look, she's known a little bit more for the culture wars, and not to say that she hasn't done good work, but identity politics and the old school fights of the Democratic Party, and she leaned into, hey, let's go appeal to the base. Let's not try to win over too many people that voted for Trump, even if they're independents. And Democrats had a very healthy, strong primary, and they decided, no, let's go with the more populist direction of Talarico, and as he's trying to appeal to everyone and bring them in on issues that we all care about, including anti-corruption. So how's he doing? How's that strategy doing? Well, first, he's attacked by, in this case, the right wing rather than the establishment. And they try to smear him with the old culture war stuff. The libs of TikTok says, this is James Talarico, who just won the Texas Democratic primary for US Senate. Quote, trans children are God's children made in God's own image. There's nothing wrong with them, nothing at all. And they're like, aha, we got him. He thinks we should treat every human being as if they're human. Did you get him? We're gonna see the numbers in a second. So he didn't say anything about transports or anything along those lines. He just said they're human beings, they're God's children, right? He often talks in biblical terms. He's a much more religious candidate. But because he's religious, he's also against war, he's also against corruption. And so did that line of attack work? You're gonna see in a second. But is that really what Talarico is about? No. In the primary, he was actually considered to candidate against the culture wars. So what is he actually about? Let's get a quote from him so we can figure it out. Talarico says, they call us a threat. The only truth is we are a threat. We're a threat to their corrupt system. Attaboy. Okay, so I love that kind of talk. Well, let's see how he's doing, because now there's two Republicans in the race. John Cornyn, the current incumbent Republican senator, and they're in a runoff. The Democratic primary is over, but they still are competing. Cornyn is going against Ken Paxton, one of the most corrupt guys in Texas and in the country. But he's a little bit more popular with what's left over of the MAGA base, the ditto heads of Donald Trump. So, but it's Texas, and we're not gonna get, I mean, the establishment tells me, and then the extreme right wing tells me, a populist Democrat can't possibly win. And in Texas, this isn't Michigan. There's no Muslim voters here. There's some, but not many, okay. Well, in Texas, there's no way. Well, you can see where this is going. Here we go. Talarico holds a 44-41 lead over incumbent Senator John Cornyn. and a 46-41, even larger lead over Attorney General Ken Paxton. That's a real poll with over 1,800 people polled and a margin of error only 2.5%. So it's a very reliable poll. We got another one. Independents, how did they go? Well, they broke heavily for the Democrat in both matchups. Talarico leads 51-29 among the group against Cornyn and 53-28 with independents against Paxton. So that is beautiful. And there you go. Now Talarico has taken the lead in Texas. We'll see if he can hold it, but I believe he can. Okay. Now, one last one, Graham Plattner in Maine. Now, he was first attacked by establishment Democrats because he's going against the governor of Maine there, Janet Mills, who's reliably establishment, reliably pro-Israel, reliably pro-corporate. So Chuck Schumer loves her. This is the kind of corrupt candidate you have to pick. No, if you pick an outsider like Plattner, he can't win. Besides which, Mills is going to crush him. You're all wasting your money. And he has no chance of beating Susan Collins. You see the pattern, right? So I'm gonna show you in a second. But first, now the Republicans have gotten into the race. They're still in the primary, but you'll see not much of a primary left. So the Republicans and the Israel First crowd have started attacking him now. They're taking the baton from the Democratic leadership to Republican leadership. Okay, now you guys spend money. So here they are with a gotcha ad against Plattner. Get him, guys, go ahead.
Graham Plattner blames Maine's women for getting raped because he says they get up drunk. And Plattner bragged about having a Nazi tattoo on his chest. That's the real Graham Plattner. Pine Tree Results PAC is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Nazi tattoo. The Democrats already tried this nonsense. It's like a skull and bones. He didn't know, and they're like, and he's a communist. Well, you got to make up your mind. Is he a Nazi or a communist? Can't be both, right? So we've already gone through this many, many times. But who's so adamantly against Graham Plattner these days? Oh, let's find out. Let's go to Ryan Grimm, one of the best journalists in the country for Dropsite News. The PAC funded by Blackstone CEO Steven Schwartzman and Palantir's Alex Karp, putting $2 million behind this ad. So that's Israel First, that's Palantir, the surveillance state. So both the tech bros and Israel First are like, you can't go populist. Maine, you better not go populist. You better pick a Democrat or a Republican who's our bitch, okay? Who we walk around on a leash. Don't you dare, Nazi. No, everybody who's opposed to corporate rule and Israeli rule is a Nazi, you hear us? Apparently they didn't hear you. Here's my great pleasure to present the polling. Well, how did the establishment Democrats do when they're trying to take out Plattner in the primary? Well, here's the latest polling. Plattner at 61%, Janet Mills at 28%, thinking of adding Felicia as her middle name because we're at a bye Felicia moment. Undecided's at 9. This race is over. That is why the Democrats have stopped wasting their money trying to bury him with propaganda and fake ads and horse crap. And the Republicans have taken over, and Israel First is taking over. We got it from here. He's against Israel. He's a Nazi. So that'll work, right? I mean, all those ads, and Schumer was right. Like he can't possibly beat Susan Collins. I mean, they've tried 1,000 establishment candidates against Susan Collins, and they never ever win. So a Democrat can't win in Maine, right? A late March poll from Emerson College, though, showed Plattner, with 48% support among likely Maine voters to Collins' 41% with 12% undecided. I ran the math on that. It looks like he has a 7-point lead. What happened to he can't win a general election? What happened to he can't win a primary? Guys, you see what's happening here? Something that is beautiful and golden and really important. Now, the oldest problem we had as progressives and populists was that mainstream media would eviscerate us. They would lie and lie about us, and then the donors would come in and run tons of ads against us and propaganda, and then the mainstream media would come back in and high five and go, oh yeah, Hassan Piker, Nazi, anti-Semite, and both CNN and usually MSNBC back in the day for sure, they were actually the worst of the worst. Fox News, they all gang together. Now they all get together and they are counterproductive. Not only can they not do the propaganda effectively like they used to in the past, to make sure that we all live under donor rule and we don't find out. Now when they do the propaganda, it backfires. And you go from third to first. And you go from a tight race to now, after all the attention, when Plattner and Mills first engaged in the fight, and in the beginning, they were nearly tied. In fact, Mills was, I believe, leading at the very, very beginning. And people were like, oh, no, Mills, that's right, she's gonna win. And look at all these Plattner smears, etc. But the smears actually helped them, because why that's working so well, guys, is number one, no one trusts mainstream media. I mean, at this point, you'd have to be like 98 years old to believe that anything on television is true. They're not in the news business, they're in the business of covering up the news, and they're the biggest weapon that corporate rule has in this country. And they use it against all outsiders, right wing and left wing. They despise actual American people. They despise the average man. They despise outsiders and populists, and they would destroy all of our candidates. But now everybody's seeing it as, oh, establishment media is against this guy, then I love this guy. Oh, Israel's against this guy, then I love this guy. So keep going, Jake, keep going, Fox News. All you're doing is helping us. It's a beautiful day in America. We've broken through their wall of propaganda. What did I tell you right after the election? It sucks that Trump won. Trump's a disaster. I've been arguing against him for over a decade straight now. And I said he was incredibly low IQ. I told you. And he came, oh, I didn't know they were gonna close up the Strait of Hormuz. Everyone knew that. He's a buffoon. But after the election, I sensed that the establishment media was defeated, and that would make all the difference when we're in the populist woods. And here we are, guys. We're in the populist woods, and this is our home field advantage. They have come to our turf, and now they're in a world of trouble. So keep going, keep supporting populists, and if those three win, woo-wee, they're going to the Senate, and we're gonna have a very different Senate in the future. So good day in America. All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick break here. When we come back, I've got more news for you, including JD Vance with a CYA operation that misfires and is also counterproductive. God, I love when these guys fail and hurt themselves. All right, we'll be right back. All right, reading these comments blind since I'm doing solo. Let's do Doodle Dragon Imran, TYT.com. Happy 2-2 Tuesday to you. Love you, TYT. Wishing you all the luck and happiness. Blessed are the fighters. Oh, I like that. Thank you, Imran. He's got a couple of shirts, by the way, at shoptyt.com that he designed, including the vote one, which I love, Blue Nami, I think it's called, and then the ceasefire. That's proceeds are going to Palestine Children's Relief Fund for that one. Okay, Eclectic Miscellaneous says, Jenk Solo R, bring on the rage and dad jokes. Boom, I'm already at the dad jokes. Haven't had a chance at rage yet. Michael Napin says, what is this, 2012, Jenk Solo first hour? Will he be 20 minutes late for the second hour? Maybe. Could be. Okay. Ian Goulba says, besides the fact that Stephen Miller is hiding behind his pregnant wife, Trump got rushed off the stage to stand there just off to the side with no Secret Service around him. If you don't think this was staged, you are the reason the country ranks so low in education. Yeah, there's a lot of weird questions. Today, Caitlin Collins saying, there's a very conflicting story about who shot the Secret Service guy who got hit in the vest and whether the so-called shooter even got off a shot. So lots of weird things going around. Impeach for Peace says, he's like, I reject all labels, and Cenk says, that's why he's a populist. I hear you, that's fair, good fair commentary and criticism. But in my opinion, when you say how I'm appealing for the left and the right, because I'm going for the average guy, but you mean it and you could prove it in your policies, that's when I call you a populist. To be fair, he didn't call himself one, you're right. Jedi 6 says, Cenk, please speak with Earl Ford here in Florida. He's running for Congress against Anna Paulina Luna. He's taking no PAC or corporate money, need TYT help and support to get his name out there. I like it when you guys give us new ideas on candidates, like it. We'll be back. Hey guys, we're back. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I will read a lot more of your comments during the breaks. And the good way to keep up with that is if you're a member through our website, then you get that member stream. Doesn't have the ads, so tyt.com/join. And if you're a member on TYT on YouTube, no problem, you already paid for it. Just connect your accounts, tyt.com/connect. And that way you could also get your comments read, the super chat read, etc. during the breaks. But I also want to do one more thing here, guys. Cook Unity is one of our sponsors, and already a lot of our viewers are writing in saying they love it, and I do too. Their meals are delicious, and they have a huge variety. You don't get the same meals over and over again, and they've got all-star chefs, Food Network alums, James Beard winners, and you get to taste comfort and craftsmanship in every bite from the award-winning chefs behind Cook Unity. Now, that's a line they ask you to read, but it's actually true because I actually use them and they're terrific. Go to cookunity.com/TYT or enter the code TYT before checkout to get 50% off your first order. That's a big deal. It's 50% off your first order by using the code TYT or going to cookunity.com/TYT. All right, go save yourself some money and get delicious food. All right. Let's go to the next story. So there's a big story in the Atlantic about JD Vance that, gosh, he didn't want this war. He's got a lot of problems with this war. It's not because he's planning on running in 2028 and would like to cover his ass. Oh, actually it is for that. But nevertheless, we find out two super interesting things in this story. One is how depleted our munitions are, and wait till you get a load of the specifics on that one. And that's why Trump is like, we'll extend the ceasefire. We did another ceasefire, please don't, right? So you begin to get an understanding of why through this piece. And secondly, apparently there's someone else in this equation that might be thinking for running for president, which I'm a little surprised by. And there's shots fired here, political shots. So let's take a look. Atlantic's piece says the Pentagon may not be telling Trump the full picture about the war. Vice President Vance is worried that the US is running low on weapons. So hence the two parts of the story. The part about running low on weapons is correct, and we'll show you that. The part about Vance being concerned about the war is half correct. He's concerned because he realizes the war is a disaster and he's not going to be able to win the primary, let alone the general election, if he's seen as in favor of the war, which he actually is. Okay, so, but let's go to the Atlantic piece and I'll break it down one by one. They say, in closed-door meetings, JD Vance has repeatedly questioned the Defense Department's depiction of the war in Iran and whether Pentagon has understated what appears to be the drastic depletion of US missile stockpiles. And they say that he has brought that concern directly to the president. But there's somebody in the way. Who is that? Well, it might be Pete Hegseth. So the Atlantic continues, both Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, and General Dean Cain, who chairs the Joint Chiefs of Staff, have publicly said that the US weapon stockpiles are robust and portrayed the damage to Iranian forces after 8 weeks of fighting as drastic. Vance's advisors, who spoke with us on the condition of anonymity, told us that the vice president has presented his concerns as his own rather than accusing Hegseth or Cain of misleading the president. Now, that's him trying to thread the needle. No, I'm not criticizing anybody in the administration, not Hegseth or Dean Cain. At the same time, they're total liars and they keep pumping up that we're doing great when in reality it's a disaster and it's gonna cost me an election. Oh, I mean, I'm very concerned for America, okay? So he's saying Hegseth and Cain are lying to the president. He's throwing them under the bus. We're also gonna get a sense of why that might be in a second. Vance is trying, the advisor suggested, to avoid making this personal or to create divisions in Trump's war cabinet. Sure, wink, wink. Some of Vance's confidants, however, believe that Hegseth's portrayal has been so positive as to be misleading. Now, I'll point out here, so far all the quotes are from Vance insiders and staffers and advisors. That means this is a puff piece for Vance. When Vance's team is leaking it, they write it from a pro-Vance position. If you don't know that about mainstream media, that is a very important Rosetta Stone. Always look for who's leaking it, and 8 out of 10 times, that is the person that will be positively portrayed in the story. In a sense, it's a deal that journalists make with their sources to halfway lie on their behalf as a reward for getting the scoop and the story. And so here they're pretending like that Vance has got a lot of issues with the war. At the end, you're gonna see that's not remotely true, okay? But it is interesting that it's his advisors that are throwing Hegseth and Kane under the bus. And so the Atlantic continues, Pentagon's leaders' positive portrayals present an incomplete picture at best, people familiar with intelligence assessments told us. According to those internal estimates, now here comes a really important real part, Iran retains 2/3 of its air force, the bulk of its missile launching capability, and most of its small, fast boats, which can lay mines and harass traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, so guys, why do I know that that part is true? Because Vance is partly giving this as an incentive to the Atlantic. I'm gonna give you a nice scoop about how we've been lying about our defenses and Iran's capabilities. So, and in return, I'd like you to present me as someone opposed to the war. And so that's the deal that was had here. Now, so they're not going to tell you that Iran still has 2/3 of its air force if they don't. If Vance was lying about that, trying to puff up Iran, that would blow back on him in a big, big way, and it would be very easy to prove. So this is the part of the story that's true and very concerning. So the entire time Trump has been telling people, and we're gonna talk more about this later in the show, but also convincing the stock market, things are going great, we've destroyed their entire Air Force. Then we find out later from NBC News in a story we covered yesterday, no, one of Iran's F-5 jets even got through our defenses, bombed one of our bases, killed a lot of people. They've apparently downed dozens of our aircraft. We're in much worse shape than we realize. And of all of those things, their Air Force, their missiles, what is doing the most damage? The small boats, because they're the ones blocking the Strait of Hormuz. They continue, Tehran brings more missile launchers back online every day. Roughly half are accessible again after an initial 2-week ceasefire that was scheduled to expire last Tuesday, according to people familiar with the assessments. So things are not getting better, they are getting worse. And since Vance knows internally how bad things are, he's got to tell you that he's against this war, otherwise it's an albatross around his neck. So now let's go back to Hegseth for a second, because here's where he finds himself on the underside of a bus. Several people close to Trump believe that Vance now sees his political future as tied to what happens in Iran, one of the senior officials told us. Of course, okay? And so they're saying, quote, nobody in Trump's inner circle was more worried about the prospect of war with Iran or did more to try to stop it than the vice president. Now that's interesting because that's the New York Times. So that's a separate story that came out just a little while ago. We covered that one too. And again, it's Vance advisors and insiders saying, now remember, Vance was not for this war. Why is he, if the war was going great, why would he be panicking about and screaming to the New York Times and the Atlantic that it is not going well and that the administration is lying to you? Well, that's because he knows for a fact this is going disastrously. So that's a super important fact. Another thing I found out through the Atlantic, which I honestly didn't know until I read that, was it turns out this knucklehead, meathead Hegseth is also thinking of running for president. And his whole thing is like, I am the one who's the most vicious and the most violent and the most pro-war and the most pro-Israel, and I will do everything for beloved Israel and more wars. Okay, so he's already eliminated. Vance, you don't have to worry about him, okay? Like nobody's gonna vote for that. So he's bragging about Venezuela and how the first Iran strikes went well. Yeah, the first ones. How's this war going? And Hegseth said, and he's at least public, right? Hegseth cannot escape this at all. He's the one going, oh, we just destroyed them. We beat them so bad. Well, the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Yeah, but we bombed and we destroyed and we had a lot of fires and we're Team America. No, you're not. You're like the goofy guy that they make fun of in Team America. Okay, so some of this is also political jockeying in particular, but mainly Vance is not worried about Hegseth as much as he's worried about the albatross. So back to the New York Times, they report, in front of his colleagues, Vance warned Trump that a war against Iran could cause regional chaos and an untold number of casualties. It could also break apart Trump's political coalition and would be seen as a betrayal by many voters who had bought into the promise of no new wars. Did he? That's what his advisors are telling you. But I remember the New York Times reporting something else. So let's go to a little deeper in. The vice president thought a regime change war, the New York Times reports, with Iran would be a disaster. Here we go again. His preference was for no strikes at all. Is that right? But knowing that Trump was likely to intervene in some fashion, he tried to steer towards more limited action. Did he? I mean, this is a giant CYA operation to cover Vance's ass, and from mainstream media, because they got leaks and they got scoops. They got scoops. Scoop, JD Vance is against the war that he's 100% in favor of and part of this administration, but we will lie to you all and pretend that he's against the war. Why? Because I saved the best for last. Later, when it seemed certain that the president was set on a large-scale campaign, Vance argued that he should do so with overwhelming force in the hope of achieving his objectives quickly. Okay, so in other words, he didn't say limited strikes, he said go big and fast. In fact, that line is from an earlier New York Times story. That's why that later New York Times story was like, oh, we're pretending JD Vance is anti-war, but it's super inconvenient because earlier we wrote that he was the one that told Trump, don't do limited strikes, go in big with overwhelming force. We got this, we're gonna win this war and I'm gonna be president next. Oh no, it turns out we were racist idiots who believed the Israelis and thought that the Iranians were stupid Muslim savages who couldn't close the Strait of Hormuz or attack our bases. And it turns out we were maniacally wrong, pathetically wrong. So now he's like, backpedal, backpedal, backpedal. And the New York Times is like, yeah, remember how we reported earlier that he was the main guy, say, going in favor of going big with overwhelming force? Now we're gonna report, first, we didn't mention this earlier, but first he was against the war, but once he realized he's pathetic and has no ability to convince the president of anything, and he got steamrolled by Netanyahu, then he's decided to go overwhelming force. Now, of course, he didn't write any of that, but it is true about the part where he apparently couldn't prevent the war. And because your best case scenario, even if you believe the JD Vance insiders that he was secretly against the war as he was telling Trump to go big into the war, bigly, huge into the war, even if you believe that, well, brother, that means you were no good at your job, that you could not stop Trump from going to the war if you thought it was a bad idea, that you did get steamrolled by Hegseth and by the Israelis, and you're not very good at this. So even that story is not one that is as positive as Vance thinks it is. And you can see the panic because internally he knows more than we do. This war is gonna end in nothing but disaster, and he's gotta get away from that stench as quickly as possible. And here he's using, interestingly, mainstream media to do that. But we do find out that Hegseth comically thinks he's running for president. JD Vance is purposely kneecapping him. And the Iranians' military situation is way better off than we realize. And those small fast boats are the ones laying the mines. And apparently we cannot stop them at all. And that is why not only is the Strait of Hormuz closed now, we've now gotten to a point where it appears we're worried that we just cannot reopen it. So we have ceded enormous leverage to the Iranians, and our American interests are worse off today than before we started the war. This war, this disastrous war brought to you by Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, JD Vance, and Pete Hegseth, final cherry on top, as he's coming back from the failed peace negotiations from Pakistan. Who's JD Vance calling on his plane? The Prime Minister of Tajikistan, kidding, of course, the leader of Israel. He calls Netanyahu, he's like, okay, yes, this peace settlements are scuttled, mission accomplished. Don't worry, next I'm going to have dinner with Miriam Adelson and Paul Singer and all of your Israel First donors you're sending my way to collect millions of dollars while I'm pretending to be against the war. That call actually did happen. He reported to the Prime Minister of Israel about what happened in the peace negotiations. I don't know if he called him before he called Trump, but Netanyahu's his daddy. He did go raise money from Adelson and Israel First right after he landed. So JD Vance has thrown his lot in with the pro-war, pro-Israel, America last faction, and he's desperately using mainstream media to try to deceive you. We'll be right back. right, guys, more reading of comments blind. Take advantage of the opportunity. Okay, Maple Flame writes, today's show has pre-2020 flavor. I love it. Thank you. Pessimistic Progressive says, Cenk, with Hassan being your nephew and you knowing him better than most, does it ever feel surreal to having watch all these, excuse me, insane media dialogues around him? Yeah, of course, it's super surreal. And so, and it's, yeah, I mean, there's no, you guys know him as like on-air figure. I know him as a kid who was growing up in our house, right? So yeah, it's super trippy and surreal, but you know what? The more attention they give him, the bigger he gets and the more and the smaller mainstream media gets. So enjoy that strategy. Wong Jun says, JD Vance really wants to get his hands on that Resolute desk chair. Of course. Our guy says, wait, is this a Cenk solo show? Have I traveled back in time? I gotta go make some investments real quick. That's funny. Spider-Man Dragon says, I have an anonymous source that says that Jordan is better host than Brett. I mean, it must be right. Someone did say it. Nice way to play the mainstream media trick. I like it. Little Taco Dragon, as a YouTube member, says, Cenk solo hour of power. Baga. I like the solo hour of power. Face Scott Smith says, I'm already done with both sides. I'll take a populist over an AIPAC money taking hypocrite. There you go, fake. Here. Black Wonder Philippines says, Cenk, your Han Solo joke at the very beginning was so lame that it was cool. The most epic dad joke ever. Thank you, I appreciate that. That's what I was going for. Michael Catalano, now I'm out of time. We'll be right back. All right, we're back on TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. Is this a good time to join to help us battle back against the Israel First guys who are besieging the show? Yeah, I betcha. So hit the join button below if you can on YouTube. Everybody else, tyt.com/join, tyt.com/join. By the way, you get a couple of months off if you do annual membership. All right, let's go to the next story about how Israel is in charge. Okay. So does Israel control America? To some, that's an obvious question. Of course. To others, oh, that's a terribly anti-Semitic thing to say. You're just picking on poor little Israel. How dare you? Well, let's look at the facts. And new facts have come in today. And I think that the answer is going to be very, very clear. So now, apparently, there's a loyalty test if you're going to get a green card in this country. That is, gives you the ability to be a legal resident here and on your way to being a citizen. Well, of course, Cenk, don't be, you're such a lib. If you want to be an American citizen, you gotta have to have loyalty to America, right? Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's not to America. You have to have loyalty to Israel. You think, I've gotta be exaggerating, that can't be real, right? It is real and reported on by the New York Times. So, they explain, under new guidance issued by the Trump administration, immigrants can now be denied a green card for expressing political opinions, such as participating in pro-Palestinian campus protests, posting criticism of Israel on social media, and desecrating the American flag, according to internal Department of Homeland Security training materials reviewed by the New York Times. So it's Department of Homeland Security, they've seen the documents, it's 100% real. So now notice a couple of things they said. Burning the American flag. Look, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with burning it, but I also don't agree with denying people's ability to do that. The Supreme Court has ruled it free speech. And we should not be blocking people for their political opinions. But at least I understand the rationale. It's not coming out of left field. You could agree or disagree on it, you could debate it, but it's some sort of marker of, are you for or against this country when you're applying to become eventually a citizen of this country through the green card process. Okay, I get it. The other two, why on God's green earth would we care if you're posting on social media criticism of a foreign government? Imagine if instead of Israel, it said, now if you post anti-Bolivian material online, you'll obviously be denied entrance to America. You'd be like, wait, what? Anti-Bolivian? Why do we care what's going on in Bolivia? I mean, the lovely country, I'm not against it, But why is that a litmus test to whether you can get a green card or citizenship in America? People would find that the strange. Imagine if it was Russia or China. You're not allowed to post anything negative about Russia. The whole country would go nuts. The mainstream media would explode. We knew it. Russia, Russia, Russia. He's serving Putin. He's under the control of Putin. Not only would they say that, they have said that in the past, and we never got anything this crystal clear. But to me, the third one is the most egregious. Forget being against Israel or just criticizing Israel. You no longer have speech rights in America. This is one of many, many stories we've covered. 38 states say you're not allowed to support boycott, divest, and sanction movement against Israel. And if you do, they'll take government contracts away from you and try to ruin your livelihood. It could cost you money, cost you speech. There's so many different laws in this country that prevent you from criticizing one country in particular. Not even America. That's also, of course, unconstitutional. But Israel. Now, being blocked from criticizing Israel is obviously unconstitutional. We have speech rights to say any damn thing we like about our own country, let alone other countries. But one corrupt politician after another, after, by the way, in every single instance, taking a massive amount of money from the Israeli lobby, whether they're national politicians or they're governors, and then they go, oh, I've gotten millions of dollars from AIPAC. Okay, that's it. You're not allowed to criticize Israel. There's a law in Florida. You're in a lot of trouble if you're criticizing. You have no speech rights in Florida. Bow your head to Israel. And then you show the press, hey, here's how much money Ron DeSantis got from the Israeli lobby. And then the guy does this law, and he even signed it in Israel. He signed a law about Florida in Israel. I mean, there's giant blaring neon signs, controlled by Israel, controlled by Israel. But on top of that, in this one, they go, you're not even allowed to be pro-Palestinian. If you're pro another human being, another race or ethnicity that Israel hates and wants to discriminate against, that's it, you're banned. That is insane. That's like the British are a special ally. Of course, we don't give them anything like we give to Israel, and we don't fight all their wars for them. They didn't ask us to attack 7 countries. Anyway, so if we had passed a law saying you have to be more loyal to England, that already would have been super crazy, UK. But if we said we will ban you from this country if you post anything pro-Irish, justifiably, everybody would have said that is insane. That is exactly and literally what they're doing here. So, but by the way, credit to New York Times for covering it and bringing us this story. Great job, guys. Credit where credit is due. Cable news. Guys, just shut up, you anti-Semites. That's it. You should all be canceled, okay? They haven't criticized this at all. Some have written in that Chris Hayes actually has been decent on some of these issues relating to Gaza, Lebanon. All right, I'll exclude Chris from the criticism of every other corrupt cable news actor who obviously also works for Israel and never criticizes them, even though we have preposterous new rules and laws like this. All right, let's continue about what is criticism of Israel. New York Times explains. With the training materials citing as an example of questionable speech. We're supposed to have free speech in this country. We don't give a damn what you think is questionable. Anyway, example of questionable speech, a social media post that declares stop Israeli terror in Palestine and shows the Israeli flag crossed out. But wait, Israel is doing terrorism in Palestine. So now you're banned from saying things that are true if it hurts the feelings of a foreign government. Guys, the people that are in old school, like that watch cable news and have their brain fried and leaking out their ears like Rudy Giuliani and Joe Biden, right? And they're like, Israel is our special ally. We must fillet them. I owe all my money to them. Otherwise, I'm a Jew hater. I serve Israel loyally. Outside of those guys and the mainstream media anchors themselves, the jury's in. We're not going to be in favor as Americans, either on the left or the right, and especially as independents. Oh yes, we should ban everyone's speech and deny them access to this country if they're slightly criticized beloved Israel. That is a mental proposition. Okay, by the way, is there really Israeli terrorism? Are you allowed to say that? Well, now in a lot of ways, you're not allowed to say that in America. I say it anyway, and Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump and all of Israel First can kiss my ass, my American ass. And they're like, oh, your American ass has been disloyal to Israel. Israeli ass is more important. That's why Trump and Vance are kissing it. Okay, great. By the way, so is Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries. We're a fair show. All right, so Israel has, of course, killed 72,594 people at a minimum in Gaza. They've killed nearly 2,500 in Lebanon, 3,500 in Iran. To be fair, that one is partly us as well. They've killed over 22,800 kids. These are all bare minimum numbers. Verified bodies. They assassinate reporters and kids, American doctors confirming headshots and chest shots to kids under 5 years old, to reporters. They do double taps, which is a hallmark of terrorists. They wait for rescue workers to come in one case in Lebanon, a priest to come in, and then they hit him again to murder all the rescue workers as well. They've destroyed nearly every hospital and school in Gaza, and they are now doing that to Lebanon and Iran. And oh yeah, right, there's sexual violence in their prisons because, again, this is what terrorists do. They rape their victims. So the one guy saying, I wish for death, sexual violence in Israel's prisons is an organized state policy. That is quoting insiders. And here's some details from that. And sorry, but to subject you to this, but I've got to show you and prove to you how vicious Israel is. And they say we are not allowed to criticize what I'm about to read to you. Okay, one former detainee, a 42-year-old woman from North Gaza, who was held in a notorious Sidi Taiman detention center, said she was bound naked to a metal table and repeatedly raped by 2 masked soldiers over the course of 2 days. Remember when cable news went nuts over maybe sexual assaults? Probably sexual assaults that happened on October 7th. It was very hard to conclusively prove it, but it looked like that might be the case. And they're like, good enough, the most outrageous thing. How many cable news hosts have covered the vicious and systemic rape that Israel does in their gulags to Palestinians over and over again? 0 is the count I have it at, 0. Because when Israel does it, then rape is a good thing, right? Okay, well you say, well look, James, that's just one case. Now look guys, I can give you dozens. And we've covered earlier IDF soldiers saying they can't sleep at night for what they've done to people. And how they were innocent and they did the most vicious terroristic acts to them. But I'll give you one last one. Sorry, it's so graphic, but you should know what monsters these guys are. So to finish up the lady that I was talking about, she recalled that she was left shackled, naked, and bleeding throughout the night before the soldiers returned the next day to continue raping her. And if you thought that was bad, and it is, it's the most horrific thing you could read until you get to Amir. Amir, a 35-year-old Palestinian man, also held at Sidi Taiman. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's okay. It's a freaking gulag run by terrorists. Anyway, recounted how soldiers forced him to strip naked before their dogs urinated on him and then raped him. He described how the dog penetrated me in a trained manner while I was being beaten. So these are the beloved Israelis we're not allowed to criticize. These are the ones that have taken away our First Amendment rights, have ripped up our Constitution and said you must bow to Israel if you're to be allowed in this country, if you're allowed to stay in this country, and even if you're an American citizen, we'll take your contracts away, we'll do punishments on campus. I have American students coming up to me, not foreign students, American students when I was on college campuses and whispering to me, hey, thank you for your critique of Israel. We're not allowed to say it here. They're making lists and making sure that no one who criticizes Israel will get a job after we graduate. We have an Israeli Gestapo that's inside our government, that's inside our media, that's inside the country, that is bullying, intimidating, and ruling us. And this is clear. Look at the government saying, you must bow to Israel if you're to enter America. Okay, how do they justify it? Zach Collar, a spokesman for USCIS, says, if you hate America, you have no business demanding to live in America. Yeah, but what if you want to criticize Israel? Because you didn't mention that. Why didn't he not mention that even though he knows the primary questions about Israel? Because it's indefensible. Go ahead Israel first. I said it online already. And in social media, the reaction, the pathetic reaction back was like, well, I mean, Israel is so America that really if you criticize Israel, you're criticizing America because we are America. Shut up, you anti-Semite. Stop telling people the truth. Make them stop. Yeah, I know. They're trying to make us stop, but it's not gonna work. Abigail Jackson, a White House spokeswoman, said the administration policies had nothing to do with free speech, even though they're literally banning free speech. Quote, and were meant to protect American institutions, the safety of citizens, national security, and the freedoms of the United States. No, to be absolutely clear, they are taking away the freedoms of people in the United States so that they are not allowed to criticize Israel, a foreign government. You get it. In the past, the New York Times explains, immigration officers have focused on statements that could incite or encourage violence, given concerns about the infringing on constitutionally protected speech, former USCIS officials said. So yeah, that's true. In the past, they would look to see like the flag burning. I don't love that rule, but they could say, well, maybe that means you're gonna be violent. We're not looking to block your speech, but if you're gonna come into the country and be violent, we can't have that. And that rule makes sense, okay? But here, it's not about violence, it's just about speech. And it's not about America, it's about Israel, okay? And then, so is this surprising from the Trump administration? Look, given that we've given our so-called special ally all these different things, absolutely not. And on top of that, what they've done is now they're slowing green cards down to 50% of what it used to be. Because the Israelis have to check, are they allowed in? Or they one day they might vote against Israel, or they might even say something against Israel. No, they're blocked, and they're blocked, and they're blocked. Okay, now I'm gonna tell you who you take into your country, and that's a cut it in half. And they have to be pre-approved by Israel. But Israel doesn't control America. The people saying that Israel doesn't control America are purposely lying to you. I know a lot of them actually mean well and they're ignorant. They've been taught that it's a trope and it can't possibly be true. Even if it's proven to you 200% over, they'll be like, no. I was taught that it was a trope. So if it's a trope, you can't even say it. You're not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to say it. In fact, you're canceled and you should be criticized and you should be banned. No, brother, no. I don't give a damn what you think is tropes. This isn't a trope, this is a fact. So at best, you're ignorant if you don't realize Israel obviously controls America and our government. And at worst, you're maliciously lying to the American people so they don't find out that Israel obviously controls American policy. So now we go back to the reporting. Immigration officers have also been told to scrutinize applicants who encourage anti-Semitism through rhetorical or physical actions. So we already covered physical actions. If you say that you are encouraging anti-Semitism, of course, any criticism of Israel is immediately called anti-Semitic. That's another giant lie by the people who are protecting Israel above all in this country. But and I could prove that's a lie too. 63% of Jewish Americans, 63%, they say they support Israel, but they are against the current Israeli government and their actions. Are they all anti-Semites? According to the US government, yes. Bow your head to Israel. They don't care if you're Muslim, Christian, or Jewish. You must bow your head to that foreign government. So this idea that now rhetorical actions, there are no rhetorical actions. Those are called speech, and they're absolutely protected by our First Amendment, which Israel is trying to burn to the ground, okay? So there is no rhetorical actions against Israel. That's a made up thing to take away our rights, our American rights. Lastly, this pathetic excuse came in from one of the officials. They said, this is so you could, quote, protect your homeland and defend your culture. To which I would ask, which homeland and which culture? Because it looks like the American government is super busy protecting Israel's homeland, both literally, physically. All of our Gulf allies are complaining that we didn't spend any of our missiles defending them. Instead, we spent all of our missiles defending Israel. But also now we are protecting them from dangerous rhetoric against beloved Israel. So whose culture is this? Because this is not American culture. American culture is for freedom of speech and freedom overall and American sovereignty. No, this is Israeli culture, where Israel matters more than every other country in the world. Israelis matter more than every other person in the world, including Americans. And we're the dumb piggy bank And we're the ones that have to pay for all of their expenses, all of their weapons. We've already given them over $320 billion. They're the size of Papua New Guinea. If we had given Papua New Guinea $320 billion, everyone in the government would have been fired, because what the hell did you do that for? But when it comes to Israel, everybody in the media comes in and goes, you have to do it. You have to do it, otherwise all of America hates Jews. You anti-Semitic Trump people, bow to Israel. That's what our stupid mainstream media says. That's what our government says, because we are obviously controlled by Israel. There's no factual dispute at all. All there is Israeli propaganda by the same exact people who I just listed as controlling us on behalf of Israel. But that control is not working. And as you see, the American people like freedom, and this is bothering them, and we should go and change it. And the way you do it, last thing guys, is super important. Whether you take our pledge at notanother.com or you just have an internal pledge yourself, I don't mind and I don't care. But what I do care about is if these sellout, corrupt politicians continue to send your money that you had to work super hard for over to Israel to murder more people and to take their land, as they're doing in Lebanon right now, to both Muslims and Christians, they take money out of your pocket so that they could go steal more land in Gaza and Lebanon and make us go fight their wars and spend $8 trillion on the 7 exact countries they wanted us to attack. We attacked every one of those countries, and mainstream media is like, I can't figure it out. They wanted you to attack 7 countries, and you attacked all 7. And they gave to 94% of Congress. I bet that's a wild coincidence. They gave over $300 million to Trump. They gave to Biden and Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson, and they're the #1 donor to all of them, and Chuck Schumer. But I can't figure it out. I don't know how to follow the money. I'm a reporter. All I know how to do is kiss Israel's ass. That's all they ever taught me. That's right. You're among the people who are trying to control us. But guess what? The American people have news for you. We are uncontrollable. You will not be able to shackle us. We will demand and we will get our freedom back from the Israelis and the people supporting Israel in this country that have been trying to oppress us for much longer than you realize. And we're sick of that oppression. We're sick of the occupation of our government and of Washington, D.C. and of America, and we're gonna end that occupation. Young Turks.
Hey Andrew, what's up?
Hey Cenk, you ready to make the switch?
Yeah, I guess.
I promise it's easy, universal, basic, and you get income.
Yeah, you keep saying that. But you sure I'm gonna have coverage?
Of course you will. You think I would have bad service? I'm Andrew Yang, of course I have good service.
All right, let's try it. But I'm so bad at tech. So, wait, should I do this thing of the hashtag business? Andrew, you're still on, right?
Yep.
Oh, I see it. No, wait, I don't see. Oh, yeah, I do see it. Here we go.
I actually did not realize that you'd be searching in real time, but I love it.
How much do people actually normally say?
Yeah, the average American is gonna save between $500 and $1,000 a year on Noble.
Yeah, no, you know what I'm gonna do, Andrew? Are you ready to become a Noble member? The 2 buttons are do it and go back. There's no going back, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Here we go, Noble Mobile.
Oh my gosh, I just called you, and are you now on Noble and not Verizon?
Why didn't you tell me it was gonna be super easy?
I know, man. Now you just stay away from your phone and watch the money roll in.
I can do that. Here you go, phone, yeah.
What the Cenk, you still there?
Andrew? Oh, well, at least I got Noble Mobile.
It was really just one take. The whole thing is wild.
It's in my shoes. It's in my shoes. Hi, I'm Brett Ehrlich with breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. Hi, Brett Ehrlich here. According to EPA head Scott Pruitt, climate change is not happening. He cited a meme on Facebook he saw. When pressed to back up this source, he said it must be accurate because the watermark said it was made by a scientist. So, your move, Truth.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, Everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT, TYT. The place is like 95% TYTR.
You guys, the Young Turks, which is my favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Tank and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
All the people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
Antifa!
All right, back on TYT, the online news network. Jake Huger, Jordan Ewell with you guys. Jordan, good to see you, brother. Oh, this is awkward. You got the LA upside down there on the hat. Okay, it's a Walmart irregular, right? It's okay. You get to get a new one. Okay, so Jordan and I are going to do some stories. I'm going to give you the first one in a second, but I also want to shout out real quick to Happy Warrior Dragon. Thank you for gifting a sub on Twitch. Who Are You 6818, thank you for joining through YouTube. And Titan of Olympus 03, thank you for sending 10 Young Turks memberships on YouTube to others. I love this community when you guys look out for one another. Thank you. All right, now let's go to a fun little story about the Democratic Party. Uh-oh, look at this. Bernie Sanders versus Chuck Schumer. Wow. So we got a real fight in the Democratic Party, not a fake one, and it's over Israel. So Bernie decided to put an amendment in saying let's block 1,000-pound bombs and bulldozers, armed bulldozers from going to Israel. So they had a vote about that. Chuck Schumer was not happy about that. The fact that he's gotten $6.5 million from the Israeli lobby is of course a coincidence. And the fact that he has said that he has gone into the Senate to serve Israel is of course a coincidence, right? But we'll get to his vote in a second. But Politico interviewed Bernie about this, and they asked him about, wait, who has more Democratic support in the Senate now, you or Chuck Schumer on this issue? Good question. Politico writes, when Bernie Sanders moved last April to block a US arms sales to Israel, only 14 Democratic senators joined a Vermont independent. When Sanders objected to another Israeli arms sale this month, 39 other members of the Senate Democratic caucus joined him. Okay, so now, is that real? Is Bernie now in charge of foreign policy for the Democrats in the Senate? Can they win a vote? We're going to discuss all that, give you all the facts. But first, Jordan, what's your 2 cents on this?
Jack, I'm so glad you asked. I think we're seeing a shift, a surprising shift, maybe not an altruistic shift in the Democratic caucus. But it's interesting to watch. And I think if we were to go back 5 years and tell us we would be seeing these kind of numbers, posturing or not, I think we would be surprised. But I'm curious to hear the rest.
Yeah, I want to come back to that. That's a great point and critical to this story. Okay, so let's go back to the interview. Politico asked, well, aren't you kind of in charge in regards to at least this issue? And Bernie answers, well, that's true, whether the fact that more people were with him. He says, I mean, we got 40 votes and Schumer got 7. We have more support for our position than Chuck has for his. Ooh, shots fired. That's as rough as Bernie Sanders gets with other Democrats. So I'll give him a little bit of credit there for saying like, sorry, but no, Chuck Schumer doesn't speak for us on this issue at all. He said it in a relatively polite, roundabout way, which is his want, in my opinion. I would have said it much harsher, but I'll take it, okay? They continue. Kalen Razor, who's doing the interview for Politico, asked Sanders, were you surprised Chuck Schumer didn't change his vote? And do you think it could change in the future? Sanders, again, didn't really take too many shots at Schumer, but replied, you'll have to talk to Chuck about that, but you're right. I mean, I think what's noteworthy is that you have 2 major leaders of the Democratic Party, both Chuck and Kirsten Gillibrand, being a significant minority of the party in terms of their votes on continuing to fund military aid to Israel. And that is indisputably true. They're one of the 7 snakes who voted for Israel. We're gonna get into another one in a second. So when he was arguing with his pro-Israel colleagues, are they starting to feel heat from the Democratic base? Was another good question there, and always credit where credit is due. This is a good interview by Politico. And Sanders responded, we've had a solid group of people who have voted with us in the past, but also what we are seeing, folks who are looking at both policy and politics, people like Mark Kelly of Arizona, Cory Booker of New Jersey, and a number of others who are saying it's time that we began to vote the same way our constituents would like us to vote, which is a pretty logical and indisputable position, but it is certainly disputable within the Democratic caucus. What he's saying there in a roundabout way, I'll make it clearer, is he's saying Mark Kelly and Cory Booker would never vote with us on Israel. They'll always want to fund Israel, but even they're getting so much pressure and they're thinking of running for president, and even they've realized, oh my God, if we're seen as sending more bombs to Israel, we'll never be able to win a primary in a Democratic race. So, but that's good news. That's pressure from you guys that's working, because you guys are getting the message through online media that these guys do not represent us, and that's showing up in the polling and it's scaring the crap out of them. That's why they're voting with us even though they don't want to. In fact, I have more on that later that I'll talk to Jordan about, but one more comment from Sanders. How about the Israeli lobby? Sanders says the problem for the Democrats is that the AIPAC is enormously powerful. That's of course the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. They've spent tens of millions of dollars in campaign contributions, and they have something like $93 million in their war chest right now. For Democrats to take on AIPAC is not easy, but they're increasingly choosing to support what the people back home want. So that's Senator Sanders being honest. This is the Israeli lobby versus Democratic voters. 8 out of 10 Democratic voters have a negative view of Israel. They do not want to fund Israel anymore. They don't want to fund their wars. They don't want to fight their wars. They don't want to fund their genocide. But it's a tight call for a lot of the politicians because they're like, I want the money, Lebowski. Oh, I want the money so bad. I love money. Oh, my freaking voters. God damn it. They're so inconvenient. So, but now the voters are so large, they can't use mainstream media to block us anymore. So they're like, okay, I'll pretend to be against Israel. Again, I'm gonna come back to why I think they're pretending in a second, but I wanted to feature one of the 7 snakes, Richard Blumenthal. In DC, he's considered a gentleman, and you can't criticize Richard Blumenthal. Okay, the Israeli lobby's only given him $326,000. As you're about to see, they don't need to give him much money. He's in a very safe blue state, and he already is very loyal to Israel. You can't say that. No, I can, and he says it, so I'm gonna quote him in a second. So yes, he's taken over $300,000 from the Israeli lobby, but he also has a love for Israel that is unending. So he talked to Jewish Insider recently. I don't know if the senators know that we can read, and these are all online, and it's not just going to the lobbyists and the people you want on your side. We also have access to it. Anyways, he says, an overriding goal that has been one of my most profound concerns since coming to the United States Senate is to preserve bipartisan support for Israel. Why? Why is that your overriding goal? Shouldn't your overriding goal be to serve the voters of Connecticut? No. He's the senator from Connecticut, but he serves Tel Aviv and Haifa and Jerusalem and loyally serves. His overriding goal His overriding goal is to serve Israel in our Senate. And so that's why they're like, hey, you, Blumenthal, give me more 1,000-pound bombs. He's like, yes, sir, of course, sir. Murder anyone you like with these bombs, sir. Oh, my voters in Connecticut don't want it, but they're not my overriding goal. Israel is my overriding goal. I didn't say it, he said it. He continues, I will take advantage of every opportunity to make sure that we are as bipartisan as possible. And I resent and oppose anyone who tries to use Israel as a wedge issue politically. We need to make decisions on the merits of our own national interests and security. No, brother, we want you to make decisions on our national interests and security. But you're saying, no, my overriding goal is Israel's national security and interest, and I will make it bipartisan even if the Democratic voters don't want it. I'll shove it down their throat and say, you're gonna serve Israel, I'm gonna take your money, and I'm gonna give it to Israel in bombs and bulldozers to bulldoze innocent Muslims and Christian homes in Lebanon and in Gaza. And they'll bomb any church they want, they'll bomb any mosque and hospital or school, because Richard Blumenthal's overriding goal is to serve Israel. Which part of these guys are actually American? He doesn't sound like an American at all. Last quote, this is from Mark Rod, who wrote the piece. Blumenthal said that he has family in Israel and in the IDF, but his support for Israel comes from it being one of the US closest allies, and the US-Israel relationship being, quote, vital to our own national security through military cooperation, intelligence sharing, and technological, academic, and educational cooperation. None of those things are real. They give us fake weapons of mass destruction evidence in Iraq so we can attack Iraq, which was their #1 enemy at the time. They've given us fake information to drive us into this Iran war. They don't share information with us, they steal from us. That's not a trope, that's stone cold reality. They stole our nuclear secrets, Richard Blumenthal. And yet you think it's such a great idea to bring them in tighter? They stole all the rest of our top secrets through Jonathan Pollard. But hey, Richard Blumenthal has family that he loves and supports and serves in Israel and inside the terrorist group known as the IDF. So even if 8 out of 10 of his voters are against it, shut up. You're an anti-Semite. All of you Connecticut Democratic voters and all Democrats, 8 out of 10 Democratic voters in the country, you're all anti-Semites. You better vote for one of these snakes. Okay, oh, you can't say that because he's such a gentleman. He's not a gentleman, he's a monster that funds genocide. And again, guys, this has nothing to do with religion. Bernie Sanders is Jewish and he's the leading advocate for blocking bombs to Israel. And half the people who, half or more of the snakes are Christians who just take tons and tons of bribes, legalized bribes from the Israeli lobby. And oh, by the way, who are the snakes? Here we go, last one, and then we'll go to Jordan. I want you to know these guys because you should never, ever vote for any of these people who betray you as a Democratic voter and then betray our country. Richard Blumenthal, Chris Coons, Catherine Cortez Masto, John Fetterman, Kirsten Gillibrand, Jackie Rosen, and Chuck Schumer. But I would want you to also know the 4 who said, no, the bulldozers are too much. I mean, the armed bulldozers to destroy innocent people's homes too much. Oh, the 1,000-pound bombs? Oh yeah, we gotta send them more bombs to murder more people. Are Gary Peters from Michigan, Gary Peters from Michigan, and he's saying still, we need to finance Israel's genocides. Fascinating. Jack Reed from Rhode Island. Rhode Island is as blue a state as you can get, but Jack Reed says, shut up, Democratic voters. I'm busy serving Israel here. And the last 2, Mark Warner from Virginia, one of the most corrupt senators in the country, so that's not at all surprising. But heartbreaking, Sheldon Whitehouse. So here's another guy from Rhode Island pretending to be a good guy and a progressive, but when you're not looking, he's like, oh, serve mighty Israel. Send them more 1,000-pound bombs. They haven't murdered enough Palestinians and Lebanese and Iranians yet. All right, Jordan, so we go from 14 to 40 Democrats voting against sending money to Israel. Is it real? And are we ever going to win a vote even if we do have that trend?
Let's start with the first part. Is it real? I think to some extent, yes. We're seeing the result of sustained constant pressure from the base. And those are Democrats who can recognize that. Some of them have received AIPAC money and are close with Israel. And I think they recognize it's politically expedient. I think there are some that are, yeah, they're done. But others, Cory Booker, for instance, there's gonna be a time where he casts a bad vote, in our opinion, but one that is supportive of Israeli objectives or is in support of or granting aid to Israel. So the devil's in the details with some of those 40, but we shouldn't discount the shift that we're seeing throughout America as the result of pressure, people being outraged, disgusted by what they're seeing, how they're seeing their tax dollars used. So yes, it's real. Maybe there's an asterisk, but are we ever going to win a vote? Your other question. Not until we have different leadership, because if it came down to it, if it was a 1 or 2 vote margin and it was on the fence, Chuck Schumer would make sure that Republicans got those votes. If we are in the majority, it's a totally different ballgame. Very easy for Democrats right now to take these votes, knowing it's a losing battle anyway, so they can fall on the sword. That wouldn't happen if Democrats are in the majority and you have a president, if you have potentially like a Gavin Newsom, a President Newsom saying, oh, we need to send bombs to Israel, you'd get the votes because that's what the Democratic president wants. So it's a different dynamic now than one under Biden or a potential future Democratic president. Until we have a change of leadership and that goes all the way to the top and a total change within the party infrastructure itself, no, I don't think we will actually win a vote, but I certainly don't want to discount people or lead people down a cynic path because of this. Like, keep up the fight. You are seeing a shift. It is unpalatable for some Democrats in their races this cycle to even talk about it, to support Israel. It's becoming a wedge issue. Keep driving that wedge.
Yeah. Wait, I was told that you're not allowed to drive the wedge. Blumenthal told me. I'm so sorry, Senator Blumenthal. So sorry. Okay. Anyways, so look, I agree with you, and I want to add one quick thing and then get your reaction to that. So I agree. It's definitely a good movement to go from 14 to 40. That the movement and the momentum is real, and those politicians who I have very, very low regard for, including a lot of the ones that pretended to vote with Bernie Sanders, they're at least realizing the tsunami of voters who are furious that they're backing Israel's genocide and wars. So that is a reaction to the voters. So I agree with Jordan that it's real in that sense. And number two, keep going, guys, because it is working. It is remarkable. Jordan's totally right. If you told me 5 years ago 40 Democrats would vote to block funding for Israel's bombs, I'd be like, no way, no way. You would have been hard pressed to find 4 decent moral people in the Senate. Now it's 40, whether they mean it or not. Secondly, is Israel going to lose a vote at any point soon? No, there's absolutely no chance. A lot of those 40s, and I have this from an excellent source inside the Senate, a lot of those 40 are totally lying. And if Israel needed their vote, they would definitely switch and vote with Israel, okay? So this is one of those rotating villains things. In fact, the 7 who voted with Israel, or 11 when you include the bombs part, they did it gratuitously just to show how much they're servants of AIPAC, because they didn't need their votes. But they did it just to show I am loyal to Israel, not to America. I'll prove it to you. I'll take a political bullet for no reason just to show my loyalty to Israel and to the lobby. That is amazing. But the reason why I also agree with Jordan that you shouldn't lose hope at all, despite the fact that we won't win votes soon, is because, Jordan, I think there is one scenario where we do win votes. An actual populist left candidate. And you could frame it any way you like. You could say progressive, you could say populist, you could say anything you like, as long as they're clean. No corporate PAC money, no foreign government money, and they mean it. If a clean, honest Democrat wins a primary, which I think is actually much more likely than people realize because of that polling, well, then the president gets to decide what the agenda of the Democratic Party is, and the president can overwhelm Chuck Schumer and the rest, and then we might be able to win a vote to stop, sending more bombs and weapons to Israel. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I would love that scenario. I guess I'm a little less optimistic than you about the likelihood that could occur. I would love to, I would fight for it. If that was on the table, if that's what the primary looks like in 2028, I'm going all in. That's perfectly aligned with my worldview. We've seen the Democratic machine work against progressives before. So I would be curious what that looks like. but I will fight for it. I know you will, and I know everyone watching this. I would hope everyone watching this will join us in that fight because it's worth fighting for.
Yeah, 100%. So go out there, support your populist candidates in 2026, and then certainly in 2028. That'll be a battle royale, biggest showdown ever. Democratic voters versus Democratic Party leadership. So far, party leadership has won each of those primaries, and they've tricked enough voters to have them back the worst candidate, the most corporate, the most corrupt candidates, and those candidates have lost to Donald Trump repeatedly. So if you can't beat Donald Trump, you're not good at this, and you should retire in disgrace. That applies to all of the Democratic Party leadership. Let's get clean ones in there that actually represent all of us real voters. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I want a thing called counties.
All right, back on the break here. Let's go to Twitch. Rio Real writes in, Fox called Jimmy Kimmel the Hassan Piker of ABC News. Damn. Haas is getting some massive street cred when Jimmy Kimmel is the Hassan Piker of ABC. Wow, okay. No Math Dragon, I normally love your comments. This one I disagree with. If Dems are divided, we still lose. GOP apparently is united. No. In a primary, the point is to be divided and to fight and to figure out who the best and strongest candidate is. So because I know you don't mean it that way, but I just want everybody to be careful. They'll try to get everybody to bow their heads to some anointed leader again. Don't believe the hype, okay? So once you get past the primaries, then great, everybody unite and let's go win, right? All right, let's go to YouTube members. Kane's World says, I have bad news for Keg Breath and Couch Humper. By the time we get to the next presidential election, only the reddest of red hats will stomach anyone related to this administration. I totally agree with that, but I can't help but bring my news hat on and say, Couch, the Vance having sex with a couch is a totally fake story. Didn't happen. Kind of funny, but didn't happen, okay? T-Riff, as in tariff, says, if Bernie would win an anti-Israel vote, that means there's nothing Israel won't do to keep Republicans in power. We know what they're capable of and the control they have. I'm nervous for November. Oh, of course, Israel will try every dirty trick in the world to make sure we don't elect an American. Faye Scott Smith, thank you for contributing on Super Chat, and I am out of time. We'll be right back.
Turkey.
All right, back on TYT, Jake and Jordan with you guys. Jordan's got the next story.
Take a look at this.
The First Amendment doesn't exist to protect polite conversation. We don't need that. It exists to protect the speech that makes people uncomfortable, makes people angry, disgusted. It protects the heretic, the satirist, the provocateur. Okay, the person that is actually questioning, I don't think the earth is flat. I think it's round. Without it, the powerful decide what's allowed, and the rest of us are forced to live in the dark.
Once again, Donald Trump is uniting the right and the left after he decided to publicly go after Jimmy Kimmel yet again for a joke that he made on his show. We'll get into the joke and more in a second, but first, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, so look, we already did this nonsense and oh my God, we hate free speech, say the guys who ran on free speech. So we'll do that too, but the story that concerns me within this is the FCC and talking about taking legal action against ABC, because that is deeply unconstitutional, and that's what we all have to fight back against. So good to see Glenn Beck being on the right side of that one. Tell us more about what the Trump people are doing, Jordan, to take down Jimmy Kimmel and especially the FCC part.
Well, last Thursday on his program, mind you, 2 days before the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and the subsequent shooting or potential shooting, Jimmy Kimmel did a parody of the event. The roast targeted multiple people in Trump's inner circle, but one joke didn't seem to land well. Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at her, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow. According to Kimmel, who addressed the entire situation on his show last night, he said the joke was meant to be about Trump's age. It obviously was a joke about their age difference and the look of joy we see on her face every time they're together. It was a very light roast joke about the fact that he's almost 80 and she's younger than I am. For context, Melania just turned 56 and Donald Trump is turning 80 on June 14th. Kimmel added his joke was not by any stretch of the definition a call for assassination, but the Trumps didn't see it that way. In a statement posted to X yesterday, Melania said Kimmel's hateful and violent rhetoric is intended to divide our country. His monologue about my family isn't comedy. His words are corrosive and deepens the political sickness within America. People like Kimmel shouldn't have the opportunity to enter our homes each evening to spread hate. A coward, Kimmel hides behind ABC because he knows the network will keep running cover to protect him. Enough is enough. It's time for ABC to take a stand. How many times will ABC's leadership enable Kimmel's atrocious behavior at the expense of our community? And of course, Donald wasn't going to let Melania fight this alone, so he followed her post up with one of his own. Wow, Jimmy Kimmel, who is in no way funny, as attested to by his terrible television ratings, made a statement on his show that is really shocking. He showed a fake video of the First Lady Melania and our son Barron, like they were actually sitting in his studio listening to him speak, which they weren't and never would be. He then stated, our First Lady Melania is here. Look at Melania, so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have the glow like an expectant widow. A day later, a lunatic tried entering the ballroom of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, loaded up with a shotgun, handgun, and many knives. He was there for a very obvious and sinister reason. I appreciate that so many people are incensed by Kimmel's despicable call to violence and normally would not be responsive to anything that he said. This is something far beyond the pale. Jimmy Kimmel should be immediately fired by Disney and ABC. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And surprise, surprise, the FCC is reportedly prepping to review ABC's broadcast license. According to Brian Stelter here, the Trump-aligned FCC is planning to file paperwork as early as this afternoon that will challenge Disney's 8 licenses for its 8 ABC stations. This early renewal move may be a major escalation by Brendan Carr. According to Semaphore, the move isn't specifically regarding Kimmel. Those ABC licenses were not slated for license review until 2028 at the earliest. The FCC said in a filing that Disney's corporate diversity politics may have violated anti-discrimination rules, but the timing is suspicious, to say the least, especially since the FCC hasn't taken this kind of early renewal action in decades, according to Stelter. Of course, this type of story isn't new. Trump and Kimmel did the exact go-around back in September following a comment that Kimmel made about Charlie Kirk's death. Trump raged, his show was suspended, and then he returned to airwaves days later. And why was he brought back? Because surprisingly, people aren't a fan of the government censoring people. Take a look.
I've heard every side of the story, and in general, I just want people to speak, and then the ratings will do the talking, and you can support them or not support them. And if that's what you want to watch, you can watch it, or you can watch Gutfeld and listen to him bash Kimmel, or however you want to do it. That's the world I'd like to live in.
So this seems like a big attack on free speech. And yeah, I think we've been pretty staunchly in favor of free speech. And it is funny to watch right-wing people just become left-wing people. Because I said something about how you're a snowflake if you think you should be. If you agree with this, that's some snowflake. and somebody was like, you clearly don't even know what the First Amendment means. And that's exactly what left-wing people used to tell me. Freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences.
Right.
So y'all have just switched.
America's about being bothered all the time by people you don't like. People in this country are going to make a lot of money saying things you don't like. You may be listening to one of them right now. That is annoying. People don't like that. They're never going to like it. It'll never be satisfying to hear someone you don't agree with say things you don't like and get paid lots of money to do it. But that's part of the deal.
People still are not fans of this. Let's hear more from Glenn Beck for his take.
Let me be clear from the jump here. Jimmy Kimmel has every right to say what he said. He looked into the camera in a parody monologue for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, joked that Melania Trump looked like an expectant widow, tasteless, dark, but not funny, in my opinion. And one of the reasons it's not funny is it doesn't punch up, it doesn't punch down. It punches at the image of a woman standing beside her husband, who has already survived 2 assassination attempts, and 2 days later faces a third. There's just no reason for it. But the Constitution doesn't grade comedy on a curve. It doesn't care about comedy. It's really not about even comedy. It doesn't require jokes to be funny or not funny. It doesn't have anything to do with any of that. Kimmel has the right to say these things, and ABC has the right to air it. Free speech dies by 1,000 small enforcement actions dressed up as accountability.
And Jimmy Kimmel obviously has the right to say what he said. You don't have to like it. You can try to fight back against it. The battle of ideas, Jank, the free speech arena is the only answer is more speech if you don't like it, I would argue. But it seems like the right clutches their pearls, gets sensitive, and their only answer now is censorship and silence whenever someone says something they don't like about their dear leader, Donald Trump. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm proud that we've been consistent about this for the whole 24 years we've been on the air, longest online show in history. And whether Democrats are in power or Republicans are in power, we're for free speech. If speech offends you, go to a different country. That's your problem, okay? I don't really care if people are offended by the speech. So, and I live by that. I don't just say it for you, I say it for myself. Like Charlie Kirk said terrible things about Muslim Americans. So what? It's America, he's allowed to say it, okay? And I'm allowed to debate him on that, and I'm allowed to fight him with everything I got on that. I agree with him on other things. So it's like literally the core of this country. So, and the reason I mentioned power is because whoever's in power always tries to block speech. That's why we have the First Amendment, because they knew that the government would try to block speech. So when the Democrats are in power, they say, oh, no, you can't do that. And if you don't remember MAGA, let me remind you of a billion things, but one in particular that was very stark right before the election. Remember the comic at Madison Square Garden at the Trump rally right before the election saying that Puerto Rico was a floating island of garbage. So at the time, Democrats are deeply offended, and they, wonder if he should be allowed to say that, et cetera. Although to be fair, no one tried to take anybody's license away. No one tried to say that he can't say that, but they were deeply, deeply wounded, offended, et cetera. And I get it. A lot of people have thinner skin than I do. I have very thick skin because since I grew up Muslim and I'm an atheist and I'm a Turk and I'm an outsider, a left winger, et cetera, I've taken so much abuse that I find it to be Tuesday. So I don't really care at all, right? But I get that others care more. But even if you care 100%, it doesn't matter, it's allowed. So it's a joke and we move on. And it was before the shooting, not after the shooting. So, but to me, Jordan, all that stuff is super obvious. Republicans being hypocrites, especially when they were so focused on freedom of speech in the 2024 election and in the 2020 election. Half of their conventions were about freedom of speech. And the minute they get into power, you have offended Melania, the first lady. That's it, you should be banned. You should be fired. You made a joke about the president. If you can't make a joke about the president, that means you just can't make any jokes at all. No jokes are allowed. So but you know what? If Republicans, if that's the new stance you want to go with, and go, now we're the like annoying dork guys who are like hate the Constitution and want to control what you're saying. Yeah, go for it. Be that guy, because it'll be super easy to beat you as that guy. But Jordan, the number one problem is the FCC threatening ABC's license. That's a huge problem, because that's now we're not talking about true social posts. We're talking about the government doing something deeply unconstitutional, trying to punish someone and a company for their speech. And the second big problem is, corporate executives are the biggest cowards in the world. The minute there's any kind of threat, they're like, oh guys, I'm sorry, we'll give you $450 million. Just sue us, so we can just give it to you, and it's some fake lawsuit, or okay, we'll shut down this, we'll make it more pro-Trump. So even the threat itself, to me, is a direct danger to the First Amendment.
Yeah, this is alarming. I mean, we saw what the future of this looks like. The long-term consequences looks like Hungary, where you have, uniparty control for around 15 years. This was part of what Viktor Orban did, and it made it incredibly hard. While they were successful finally unseating him, part of the reason it was so hard was because they took control of the media. That's what they're doing here. They're not doing it as, well, now it's much more overt, but up until today, it wasn't as overt as what we saw in Hungary. But you saw Barry Weiss take over CBS because of the Ellisons. Now you see the Ellisons trying to take over CNN through this potential Paramount and Warner merger. You saw Stephen Colbert run out. He's had a target on Kimmel for a long time now. He hasn't liked Kimmel for years because Kimmel will mock him. All of this is about Trump's ego. But ultimately, the consequences here, when you have weaponized the FCC, give me a break. It's not about Kimmel. It's about the diversity politics at Disney. Give me a break. Then why did you announce it today while they were while both Melania and Donald Trump were complaining about Jimmy Kimmel, saying he should be off the air? Give me a break. They're trying to do. You saw Brendan Carr last time with the fake outrage over Charlie Kirk. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. He insinuated that's the next step they would take, was go after the broadcast licenses, and that's what they're going to do here. The timing tells you what this is ultimately about. They're just trying to cover it with the diversity practices at Disney. It's absolutely BS.
Yeah, last thing is, guys, the First Amendment is so important because the founding fathers, with their warts and mistakes and all, were geniuses. And they knew that they needed to arm you, the average American, with the right to be able to say anything you want against the powerful. Otherwise, the powerful would consolidate power too easily and take away your democracy and all of your rights, not just your First Amendment rights. So, and whenever someone's in power, Democrats, they try cancel culture. The Republicans come in, they do cancel culture. And of course, the most powerful force in America, Israel. They also do cancel culture. In fact, they're the kings of cancel culture. And you could tell who's in power by the people saying you're not allowed to speak against them. So when it was Democrats, you weren't allowed to speak against some minorities and other groups that mainly vote for Democrats. When Republicans are in power, you're not allowed to speak against Donald Trump, the only person that anyone who's a Republican these days still cares about. They don't care about America or anything else. You're just not allowed to speak against Trump or his wife, etc. And whether it's Democrats or Republicans, Israel's always in charge. So they're passing nonstop laws to prevent you from speaking. So now in the old days, the saying was, the First Amendment isn't to protect popular speech, it's to protect unpopular speech. But these days, speech against Trump is popular, speech against Israel is popular, but nevertheless, the people in power are trying to block it. Don't let them. This isn't about Jimmy Kimmel, this isn't about partisan politics. This is about protecting our Constitution and our freedoms. Okay, we gotta take a break. When we come back, iceberg straight ahead. The economy is going to get way worse, even if we end the war, much worse than people realize. We're going to explain when we return. So let's go to Super Chat, guys. Brad David 902 says, Cenk, I'm sorry to hear you were doxxed by that crazy lady. With you always posting on Twitter, I always wondered why you never post pictures of you with your wife and kids. Now I understand. I can't imagine how scary it is. Yeah, I mean, look, there's some right-wingers who have no bounds. Actually, there's some on the left that also have no bounds, but mainly it's Israel First people who have, keeping it real, they have no sense of morality. And so if you can say that killing 23,000 Palestinian children isn't enough, you think that they're gonna draw the line and going after people's families here in America? I mean, if they're willing to do what we've seen with our own eyes to the Palestinians, what aren't they willing to do to us? Because remember, they're occupying Palestine and us. So we're just more, folks for them to control. So anyway, that's why we don't put up family pictures and stuff. I wish we lived in a world we could. I'd love to share more of that side of my life because it's fun and it's great. I think you guys would enjoy hearing some of the stories, but I have to really keep it to a minimum because there are ghouls and goblins and monsters out there like Laura Loomer. Michael Catalano says, I know this won't be popular here, but I gotta say I'm still deeply skeptical about Plattner. Joining Blackwater after Nisser Square massacre is truly horrific. He speaks well, but some stains don't wash off. So Michael, I hear you and we'll keep an eye out for that. You never know when anybody pulls a Fetterman. But so far, he looks way better than the rest. He does look authentically populist, but we will definitely keep an eye out. Tom from Oz says, Kimmel has higher ratings than Trump, LOL. That's probably why he caught feelings. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. I'm just gonna read one fun comment. Cabbage on our member section in TYT.com said, maybe the Ellisons can put mainstream and cable news out of its misery. Yeah, by buying them, you're right. So when the Ellisons buy something, it's kind of like when Murdoch bought MySpace. It automatically becomes toxic. Like who in the world would trust CBS now with news? So they'll soon do that to CNN and TikTok as well. Hopefully they go bankrupt. Okay, Jordan, what's next?
Donald Trump thought he pulled a fast one on us this morning. He announced once again that the Iran war is almost over, and he did it exactly 1 minute before the stock market opened at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to show you the post, the consequences. But first, Cenk, what do you make of Trump's good morning post about the war?
Okay, there's two different problems going on here, guys. One is Trump and his insiders robbing us blind through insider trading. But the second bigger one is now even the top business experts in the world are saying, yeah, the people on Wall Street have lost their minds. Why are they believing Donald Trump? We're about to hit a giant iceberg. That's gonna affect all of us. So I need you to hear all the facts and then we'll analyze it.
So here's what Trump wrote this morning. Iran has just informed us that they are in a state of collapse. They want us to open the Hormuz Strait as soon as possible as they try to figure out their leadership situation, which I believe they will be able to do. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That's, yeah, of course, definitely a scenario, a wartime type scenario where the other opposing side says, hey, we're struggling, please help, we give up. But Trump's Truth Social posts are no doubt influencing the price of oil. Energy experts say that the president's inconsistent and unreliable posts about the Iran war are on the cusp of causing another oil price spike. They claim that right now prices are, quote, artificially low due to the president's jawboning, but they won't stay that way forever. Even as the global price of oil has crept up over $100 per barrel on the futures market, it is significantly less than the $140 per barrel spot price, or what it would take to buy a barrel today. The president's promises can only work for so long. Supply of oil, especially in Europe and Asia, is dwindling and a price shock is coming, said Dan Pickering, Chief Investment Officer at Pickering Energy Partners. He said that when the summer driving season begins, there will be another gas price shock that hits people in the face. Pickering stated there's a day of reckoning coming. It'll be painful because I can tell you that the stock market's ignoring this. The big problem with the administration's strategy was pointed out by Rosemary Kalanick, who works at a libertarian think tank called Defense Priorities. She explained that Trump keeps signaling the war is about to end, but that means oil companies aren't producing any more than necessary. By talking about the market so effectively, when the price spike becomes inevitable, it's going to hurt way worse because we will have lost weeks or even months of time where producers could have been ramping up output. Even some US oil and gas industry executives are frustrated with Trump's rhetoric, with one respondent to a recent Dallas Fed survey saying the president sends conflicting signals to operators who cannot plan rigs and capital budgets when prices swing wildly based on tweets. That respondent continued, "Our hypothesis is that the paper market is being manipulated. This will likely lead to an even worse supply and demand imbalance and higher prices in the medium term in the next 12 months." And there's more, but Cenk, I want to bring you in here. It seems like the market, the financiers should understand what's happening here, but it still seems like there's just a collective confusion among the wealthy and the moneyed elite.
Yeah, there's two different things, like I said earlier. First, on the insider trading, the market's open at 9:30. When you put out a statement at 9:29, Donald Trump, we see you. So he's done this now many times right before the market's open. He says something that's going to usually bring the price of oil down. And then coincidentally, there happens to be a person or an account that is making massive bets on the price of oil going down right before he does that. That account made $58 million on one bet alone in one of these statements. So there are a lot of theories on who is handling that account. There are even rumors that it's Barron Trump. And so I don't know, but I do know that it is awfully convenient that there's an insider that it seems to know exactly when he's going to make these announcements. Now, you actually could crush that bet, and if they're working on margin, make them lose a lot of money if everybody piles onto the opposite side of it once they realize that every statement from Donald Trump is fake. But that's complicated. And so that's about one particular scam, and that sucks, and we should catch that person and we should put him in prison for a long time. Should get at least 20 times what Martha Stewart got in terms of punishment. But more importantly to Jordan's question, what are the markets doing? Jordan, I don't have an answer. It is amazing to me because every day I wake up thinking, well, I mean, they're gonna figure out at some point that Donald Trump is a comical liar, right? No, every time he says something, they believe it. That's why this story is kind of cathartic for me, because it's some of the top business and energy experts in the world going, Jesus Christ, how dumb are these Wall Street guys? You believe Trump? No, he's obviously lying to manipulate the markets and to keep the price of oil artificially low. But supply and demand is a bitch. There's no way around supply and demand. Every capitalist knows that. So you could fake it for all this time, but at the end of the day, once, you know what's happening, guys? The tankers that went through the Strait of Hormuz earlier were filled with oil. They're docking and being sold at these artificially suppressed prices. What they mean by the spot price of oil is if you go to buy oil now, because the tankers can't make it through the Strait of Hormuz, going forward, it costs about $140 per barrel. And that's just a matter of time before it catches up with us. And even if they open up the strait now, Jordan, it would still take forever for those tankers to go all the way around, and some of the drilling has stopped. That's gonna make it much longer. Some of the facilities have been bombed. That's gonna make it years later. So it was just kind of refreshing to see, especially political reporting. Yeah, your eyes are not deceiving you. We have an economic disaster ahead of us, and it's shocking that Wall Street is believing Donald Trump's puffery.
I mean, people are going to feel it. We saw what happened with the Biden administration trying to tell people, no, there's no inflation, everything's great, you're doing fine. It doesn't work because people can look at their bank accounts, they can look at their monthly statements, they can see their costs rising. It's their reality. And I think the Trump administration is going to try that same thing. Oh no, it's just temporary pain, it's for your national security. Nobody's life has materially changed for the better or for the worse as a result of this war. Here in America, generally speaking, of course, people directly impacted, yes, but I think you all know what I mean. But they're going to try this. Don't believe your lying eyes. And even before all this future inflation as a result of this, when we see this shock, people are furious. In fact, the Gallup poll found that Americans feel worse off now financially than any other point in 25 years. And that includes, Cenk, the financial collapse, the global meltdown. Significantly, Gallup has been asking respondents whether they feel their finances are getting better or worse. 55% now say worse. Few key takeaways from the data that was collected. People are more dissatisfied right now than they were during the 2008 and 2020 recessions. 2026 marked the 5th year in a row that Americans felt like their finances were getting worse, not better. And 31% cited cost of living as their biggest financial problem. Cenk, it's only a matter of time. I think if we just give it 1 or 2 more years, and finally this late stage capitalism will finally turn around and fix things. Am I right?
Hadn't yet, but so you call it late stage capitalism, I call it corporatism. And no, corporations and foreign governments being in charge of our government hasn't worked out overly well for us, to say the least. Back to the disasters that's coming and that have already arrived. So if you're in America, we're actually a tiny bit more insulated than the rest of the world. Yes, it's a global oil market, so our prices have also gone up. And I keep mentioning this because it does shock people. In LA, gas is over $7 already. So we've already been impacted. Yesterday we did the calculation. It costs about $60 to $80 per trip to the gas station, extra on top of what we used to pay. And all of that money that's getting drained out of our pockets is to serve Israel in this nonsensical war that is only for Israel and has nothing to do with us. It's only done massive damage to us already. So that's point 1, but you're not seeing what's happening in the rest of the world. That's point 2. So there's shortages now, and I've been telling you about South Korea and India, but now it's spreading. There's more in Europe, more in Asia, now in Southeast Asia as well. And since we produce more oil, we're a tiny bit more insulated because the oil's already here. Whereas their tankers, once they've sailed and they've docked in South Korea and you've gotten that oil, now after that, since the strait is closed, South Korea is not going to be able to get oil for a long time, at least through that route, which then reduces the amount of oil they have overall. And because of supply and demand, that means their prices skyrocket and they just literally don't have enough energy. So a lot of these countries are going to blackouts, etc. By the way, side note here, Israel is so maniacal because that is making people throughout the planet furious at Israel. And remember, they don't live under American media propaganda. So there isn't like constantly in South Korean cable news, there isn't propaganda going, Israel is your special ally. You need to suffer for Israel. You need to give money for Israel. You need to run out of oil for Israel. You need to have blackouts for Israel. Since they don't have that and their media says to them, yeah, Israel caused this war and now we're all screwed. That's why what seemed like out of nowhere, but it is not at all out of nowhere. South Korea, their government is like berating the Israelis and yelling at the Israelis and are super mad at him. And of course, Netanyahu's like, you better not do anything to us. You'll be next. Okay, he said that to Spain, but I'm sure South Korea will be next. He thinks he can bully the whole world, but the world is suffering because of this war. Now come back home, point number 3. Guys, there are things in economics called leading indicators and lagging indicators, okay? So oil is a leading indicator. When you have problems with oil, you're gonna see it in your gas prices first. But food prices, aluminum prices, and so many other things, transportation costs, planes, trucks, and hence the goods that the trucks transport, all of those things are lagging indicators, which means we haven't even hit the main part of the iceberg yet. What you're experiencing today is us just grazing the iceberg, but we're about to hit the center of it when those lagging indicators come home. And that's if you end the war today. We're already gonna get that disaster. If you do not end the war and you continue the war and you bomb Iran's oil facilities and they bomb the Gulf oil facilities and the Strait of Hormuz is indefinitely blocked, oh my God. You have no idea how bad it's gonna get. And Jordan, like I literally can't imagine it. At $140 per barrel, which is gonna probably happen soon, it's already going to have so many reverberating consequences that are disastrous for our economy. People are going to be furious at what happens next. If they continue the war, it's political suicide, let alone economic suicide.
Yeah, it could get very ugly very quick. We're very short on time, but I mean, it's really scary to think about what that looks like. Like you say, the shock, the economic shock waves we would see throughout almost every sector of our economy and the global economy. It can get very bad, very fast, and it's because of Trump and Netanyahu.
Yeah, and we're all forced to pay that price, and it's disgusting. All right, Operation Joy is next. All right, back on Operation Joy. This is where we try to spread a little joy in the world because we're a little crazy. So Jordan and I are going to do this, but first, a couple of things. First, Amanda 2019, way to join on tyt.com/join. Love it. Appreciate you. It's great to have members joining through that, tyt.com/join. I'm going to read one political comment left over from the show because it's so much fun. I mean, at least fun in the context of disaster. But anyway, Art Guy writes in, the US economy will be Trump's 7th casino bankruptcy. Yep. Now, to be fair to Trump, only 3 of those were casinos. The rest were other bankruptcies. And yes, I mean, even though you're joking, of course, but there's a pretty serious element to that. I mean, he has said in the past about the US debt, so what? Why don't we just not pay it? Because that would destroy the global economy like we've never seen and make the Great Depression look like kids play. That's insane. Okay, I mean, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything. Such a frustration for me as people are like, so many Democrats think too. It may be more Democrats think this. No, he's secretly very strategic. Why do Democrats think that? At least in Washington. Because they really believe that like Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton and all these people are geniuses. And if Trump beat them, he must be super extra genius, right? No, Trump is a moron of epic proportions, and you all should be, the party leadership in Washington should be humiliated for the rest of their lives for being even lower IQ than him. They're like, what? Are you supposed to appeal to voters? I don't know. I kissed Israel's ass like 28 times. I thought that was gonna get me the election. I don't know why I lost to Trump. I was just telling him I love corporate CEOs. Don't people love corporate CEOs? No, you like corporate CEOs, not the American people. God, they're the worst. Okay, anyway, Operation Joy, here we go. Somebody just wrote in, then I'll read from the website, and then you guys write in your stories of joy, or if you've got a question, Cenk, I want to be happy about this or that, but how do we do it? And then I'll tell you an exercise that I did with you guys in a second. John Campbell Reese wrote in, Operation Joy, 41 years ago, I had an idea for a novel. I knew I would have to do historical research before I could write it. And then exams, college, career, and real life got in the way. Before Christmas last year, I found a box. What am I for Javier? I found a box with all the notes I made when I was 17 years old. Today, I have finished writing that novel. John, that's great news. I love that. Way to not give up on it, brother. Yeah, and I know life sometimes gets in the way, but you wanted to do it, and no matter what happens with that novel, the very fact that you wrote it is fantastic. That's you doing what you wanted to do, you being you and living your life, and so I'm super proud of you, brother. Way to go. And I know when I wrote my book, it was also a huge relief, right? I got some thoughts down that I always wanted to get down. And a lot of books, parts of that book are important, but I've been dying to write chapters 4 and 5 the entire time that I've been doing the show. My book is called Justice is Coming. And John, if you let the rest of us read it and it gets published or whatever happens with it, you let us know what the title of your book is if it comes out, okay? All right, now we're gonna go to Operation Joy, but now, there are different folks, like there's tyt.com/joy where people write in, but sometimes people also email at hope@tyt.com, okay? And Arpan, who is putting together a huge website for us on Operation Hope, emailed it. I'm gonna read this blind, and let's see what he's got to say. That's a website that tracks corruption and sees the donors, which the politicians, did they vote the way that their donors wanted them to do? It's called Corruption Watch. It's not quite ready yet, but I love that Operation Hope and folks watching the revolution are working on it, primarily Arpan. Anyway, so here's his comment. For Cenk and Anna, I saw the TYT video discussing how your spouses were doxxed. I can imagine the stress and other unpleasant emotions that caused. I want you to know that you're an inspiration to me. You're fighting the good fight. You genuinely care about the well-being of all Americans. I'm now even more determined to get corruptionwatch.us up and running. I really hope it'll make a difference and help us get our democracy back. I just want all Americans to have a fair shot at life, not just the top 1% income bracket. Here, brother. He continues, I'm at the end of the school year and it's pretty crazy, but after May 22nd, I'll be on the summer break. I have a doctoral coursework and dissertation deadlines, but I will have a lot more free time. I anticipate the final phase of Corruption Watch to be complete and the link being live to the public by early June. That would be amazing, brother. I'm with you in this fight. Thank you for standing up to the corrupt individuals and organizations who don't care about the average American. You inspire me. Well, guys, you inspire me, man. I gave a speech over the weekend. It was to an Arab American group. Lots of Muslim Arabs there, but lots of Christian Arabs there too. And so they say, really nice things. The Christian Arabs in particular, in this particular get together, were saying, hey, thank you for mentioning us during the speech, during the show. Almost no one talks about us, and of course that's on purpose, because if you find out that Israel is also killing Christians, that won't play well. That's why our media never tells you about that. In fact, if you report that, they might call you an anti-Semite for reporting things that are true, because they don't want the news to harm their beloved Israel, so they'll pervert the news to make sure you don't hear it. That's why when Christian Arabs here on our program, what they know to be true and what's already happening to their families and to relatives, and we're the only ones talking about it, they appreciate it so much. But I say that as a prelude to saying what I told them and what I'll tell you guys, including Arpan, which is, guys, you give me strength. You give me and Anna and Jordan and everybody else that works here strength. Without you, we don't have enough strength to be able to do that. Without you guys, we don't even have a show, we don't have a network. Nobody knows about us, we're not giving speeches. This voice is not empowered on your behalf. So I appreciate you guys so much, and you have no idea how grateful I am to all of you for giving us that strength to be able to fight back. All right, before we move on, Jordan, any thoughts so far? And on Operation Joy, I might put you on the spot and see if you got anything that gave you joy recently. I'm just giving you a fair warning.
Okay, well, I'll be prepared for that. I mean, I agree. When I hear what people are doing, build their own infrastructure, their own resources to fight back, to contribute to this larger fight, I think, yes, it keeps us motivated, it keeps us excited. But also, I don't want these people to ever think that they are alone in this. I think starting something like that, what you described, sounds incredible. I wish more people would do that, or volunteer or take more time. I think the challenge that I've seen on the organization side is, people do kind of the first level of engagement. They might show up to a No Kings protest, something like that. But there are so many people who don't do anything after that. And when I hear about this, things like this, it's like, God, yes, this is what we need. We need more of this, because it's not just showing up, taking your picture for Instagram and going home. It is sustained engagement, and that is how you change things. Not just the cursory, superficial civic engagement. We need long, sustained, and commitment. And I'm encouraged and inspired by people like that.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because there's a bunch of things that are relevant to what you just said there, and related to you in different ways. Like Mr. Mintler wrote an Operation Joy, but added an R and a B in the middle, so it became Operation Jorby. So, okay, that's a new one. Okay, we're gonna have to keep that one in mind. That's his nickname. Tai Chi Chuan Dragon wrote in. So I messaged this a couple of weeks ago, Cenk, but my Operation Joy was found on the number of genuine laughs I got at No Kings for my extra long t-shirt that I turned into a sign instead because it did not fit. It said, "My dog," and then picture of a cartoon corgi with patriotic sunglasses. I don't know if I can curse here or not. Could crap a better president. It was true joy to bring so many laughs to so many patriots celebrating what we can have again. So that's one way to go. You go to No Kings, you have some fun with it. But as Jordan pointed out, keep it going. And then Jordan, Serena Z wrote in on, she emailed in as well at hope@tyt.com. and made a similar point as you. So Serena said, and she's the owner and editor of Resist Hate LLC, which sounds like a fun company. She said, they, Cenk and Anna, are always upset that no one in mainstream media criticizes Israel or tells the truth about what's going on. Same with Democrats. I'm always shouting at the TV that there's a cable news host and a Democratic senator who always do it. I finally thought to show them after seeing them talk about Israel Katz, saying they're doing to Lebanon what they did to Gaza. That's the defense minister for Israel. They talked about journalists killed in Lebanon and how many were killed in Gaza. Everything TYT and I report on because mainstream media doesn't. There is an episode of All In with Chris Hayes. I couldn't find just the clip I need, but in the video with Senator Van Hollen, they discuss funding for the war in Iran, then the Israeli government's comment about waiting for the green light from the US to continue their war in Iran, then the comments about doing in Lebanon what they did in Gaza, the targeting of journalists, the senator's trip to Rafah crossing, and the flattening of everything in Gaza, etc. This brings me joy, and hopefully it'll bring Cenk and Anna just a little bit of joy to know that there is a cable news host who regularly criticizes Israel and a Democrat who does the same. This isn't the first or only time Chris has covered it on his show or that the senator has spoken out. It's just the first time I was watching and remember to find a video to share with TYT. Serena, thank you for writing in, and that backs up with what Jordan said before when I was having a conversation with him on the air, and then he backed it up with sending me some clips. And earlier today, because of both Serena and Jordan, when I went on my usual rant about the cable news actors who all work for Israel, I said, except Chris Hayes. So more redemption for you, Jordan.
Wow, this is great. I was also thinking recently, we made a bet that, hey, still got a couple more years to go. We made a bet before the Trump administration assumed power about the military budget, and I'm just saying, we'll see how the next couple of years goes. But all signs point to you giving me a signed $10 bill for winning that bet as well about the potential cuts or additions to the military budget.
Okay, you're gonna find that clip for me and send it to me because I'm so curious what the actual bet was, because I was mainly doing the thing about they cut the defense budget because I knew that his voters would want it, but that they would never do it. So if I bet you that they would do it, I'm gonna be kind of a little bit shocked at myself for that. But let's find the clip, because you've been right a couple times before, so it's entirely possible. And so, and now are you making me doing this annoying asterisk on Chris Hayes? Okay, to be accurate. No, I'm kidding. Thank you guys. We care about like being right and not about for your ego, but factually correct, right? And Chris Van Hollen, terrific senator. He's not a guy that does a lot of media, although he does go on Chris Hayes' show pretty decently, and I'm really glad that he does. But his heart's in the right place. He's a wonderful senator, and there aren't a lot of senators you can say that about, but he is. So that's a good one. Okay, Mitrian Wright said, my joy this week is these two floof nuggets. You're going to see the picture in a second and see what she means. They hatched in my incubator Sunday evening and early Monday morning. Let's show you the picture. Oh my God, you're right. Those are floof nuggets. So people send in these cute animal pictures and then we go, oh. And it's like, oh, really? That's supposed to give us joy? Yeah, it does. It makes us go, aw. And there, we had 5 seconds of joy. Okay, good enough. Okay, let's go to half pair of idiots 6577, hilarious handle, writing in on tyt.com/joy, which you can check out throughout the week. A lot of things are bringing me joy and stress lately. For starters, my favorite band, the Foo Fighters, just released their 12th album, and it's a banger. My favorite song on the album as of right now is Window. You all should take a listen. Secondly, my sister's having a baby girl on May 4th. May the 4th be with you. He said force. And I'm taking a week and a half off to be with her and my other wonderful niece. Thirdly, I'm starting a new job. I'm a young mechanic, 24, and I've got a school, and was in the honor roll with a 3.0 GPA getting my associate's degree for automotive. I've been working at the shop I'm at now for almost 3 years in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, about an hour commute round trip, ouch. Now I'm going to be going to a big dealership half a mile down the road from my house. Oh my God, what a relief. I'm super excited, but even with all the praise I've gotten for being good at my job, I still doubt myself on if I'll be able to survive in dealership life. But over the past month or so, I committed myself to being more joyful and excited for a new experience and not focus on what could go wrong. Now, with that being said, I won't be able to watch the show as much or frequently as I've been. I listen every day at work, but I will try my best to watch you guys any chance I get. Love you all. Okay, so brother, I've got a lot of good news for you. First of all, you're gonna be terrific at that job. Now, how do I know that? Because people who work hard like you do and are unsure they're going to be able to do a good enough job, in my experience, are exactly the people who care enough to do a really good job. Like you're the kind of guy that's pushing yourself, trying to find the new job, trying to get better, etc. So it would be shocking if you didn't do perfectly great at that job, okay? So I'm super proud of you. Way to find a new job that you like. Don't worry about the big dealership. You'll write in a couple of years later and go, oh my God, Cenk, you're so right. I had nothing to worry about and it's been going great. So I love every part of that story. I remember, Jordan, that when I was about to go to Penn, my uncle pulled me aside. It's a little bit more pessimistic. And he said, don't do it, you're crazy. When you go to Penn, they're gonna eat your lunch. Okay, you go to Bucknell, go to lower school. Sorry, people who went to Bucknell. By the way, I got waitlisted at Bucknell, so it's a weird thing. It's a long story. We'll do it on a different bonus episode. But, and sometimes, Jordan, like people like scare you. Oh no, it's too big. The competition is too great. Oh, those other people are magical. And in my experience, no, the other people are not magical. If I feel a little like Stuart Smalley here, but you're good enough, and gosh darn it, people like you. So in my experience, the competition has been overhyped. What do you think about that?
I mean, well, I do want to congratulate this person on putting in the work. I'm happy to hear that pays off, because unfortunately, there are more and more instances of people doing that, putting in the work, dealing with those long commutes, trying to better themselves through education, through grinding, and the economy doesn't work for them. I'm really, really happy this worked out, and it's amazing. Like how the only thing better is if you're working from home, half a mile down the road. That's great. I'm really happy for you. On the wait, remind me on your institution, your elite institution question.
Like in my experience, when you're about to go into a big institution, whether it's like the big dealership down the road or a good school or anything, like people kind of scare you and they're like, oh, those guys are gonna be amazing. You're not gonna be able to compete. Don't do it or whatever.
Oh, no, yeah, don't ever buy it. It's like, you will quickly see how unqualified many people are in those other schools or those other jobs. There are a lot of people just faking it. Everyone's faking it. until they make it. So you put in the work, you have the expertise, you got the job on merit, you're going to do fine. And I think there's always that intimidation or fear factor, but I think that quickly gets exposed when you see just sadly how the world works. Part of the economy not working for a lot of people is because the economy caters toward people based on nepotism or privilege or access or previous relationships. It's sad, but it's not really a merit-based economy. But in instances like this, that's it working, and this person's going to thrive because they actually put in the work and got it because they earned it.
Yeah. So like take Jordan as an example. He comes in here as a guest host, intimidated obviously by me. I get it, right? And he's like, who am I? I mean, I don't even know how to wear my logo in the right way. It's upside down. I still can't figure it out, right? And but then he comes in and kicks my ass in a couple of debates. You see that? Anything's possible.
Yeah.
All right. Michael Napron wrote in on tyt.com/joy as well. Question for Cenk and Anna. Oh, I love the questions. What is the weirdest place/situation you were recognized? I remember that Cenk was recognized during the Democracy Spring protest in 2016 by the cop doing the arrest. Yeah, that's right. I was. That was funny. And it was. I also, Jordan, I don't know if you ever heard this story. So when we did like the largest civil disobedience protest in the history of the Capitol back in 2016 for getting money out of politics. It was led by a great progressive Kai Newkirk. Please look him up because he's running for Congress in Arizona. Really good guy, Kai Newkirk, and go and support him. And so Kai and I and a couple of people were the last ones arrested, and it was like a great moment in my opinion. And I've told the whole story before, but the relevant part in this case is, so they're taking my information down to, in a sense, book me, and they say, do you have any known aliases? And I was like, oh my God, I get to make up a nickname for myself. And I was like, oh, I love this. And I started thinking about it. Jordan, did you ever hear this story?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay, you'll never be able to guess it, but let's have a little bit of fun. What alias, criminal nickname, moniker did I give myself?
But it was not Mr. Jamaica?
That's a good guess. Okay, but no, I didn't write Mr. Jamaica. I didn't want to besmirch the title of Mr. Jamaica by making it my criminal alias.
Of course, no. I mean, there's so much tradition and legacy with that title. You don't want. Of course, I understand wanting to keep those parts of your life compartmentalized, but
good point.
I don't know. What could it be?
I went with El Jefe. I always liked Jefe and I thought since I'm also a little, widely challenged.
Horizontally challenged.
Horizontally challenged. Okay. I thought I've got some heft. El Jefe sounds about right. So technically, I'm Cenk Uygur, aka El Jefe, at least according to the Washington Police Department. Okay, that was fun. And no, I have not forgotten that Jordan owns us a moment of joy, but we'll get back to him. Mad Maddie Dragon on Twitch says, my joy is that my 14 months sun anniversary, SUN, using my free Prime sub, but I have been TYT family for a decade now. I don't know where my head would be these days without Cenk and everyone at TYT, keeping us all sane in crazy times. Seriously brings me joy. Well, that so often this happens. Your comment brings me joy. Thank you for saying that. Like the fact that we are able to help keep people sane in any way, shape, or form is it matters a lot to me. So thank you, brother. And but I also like that you're using Amazon Prime. So guys, if you have Amazon Prime, you get free membership on Twitch to us, and it doesn't cost you anything, but we get money from Jeff Bezos. So that's a win-win. So the way you can do that is tyt.com/prime, tyt.com/prime. All right, let's stay on Twitch. Galfer71 says, my joy this week is that Free Comic Book Day is coming Saturday, and next week it'll be the comics that I got at Free Comic Book Day, LOL. Yeah, no, look, I know that feeling. So everybody has different hobbies and joys in their life. For me, it's draft day. Draft day is, along with Thanksgiving, the most important day of the year. And so that's what I look forward to for weeks, but usually months. And I go get my fantasy football magazines in the summer. And so that anticipation feels great. I know Steven Seagal famously said the only thing worse than death is the anticipation of death. But also the only thing better than Comic-Con or draft day is the anticipation of Comic-Con or draft day. Okay, of course, quoting the wise philosopher, Steven Seagal. All right, before I go on with the rest, Jordan, give us a moment of joy you've had recently.
Well, actually, did I share my answer for the weirdest place you've been recognized? Because it was a TYT viewer.
Oh yeah, and I never
restroom.
Oh, I'm sorry, and I never got back.
You didn't answer either.
Yeah, I didn't answer either. Yeah, I'll answer it too. Good point. Yes, go ahead.
I was in the restroom at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport making a connection, and someone's like, "Hey, I like your work," and I'm like peeing? What? What do you mean? And he's like, TYT, right? I don't think he knew my name, which that's happened a couple times with TYT viewers, which is fine. I get it. But the restroom at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, as I was making a connection, funniest place I've been recognized.
Okay, that is funny. He's like, I like your work. You're like, oh yeah, watch this.
I'm shooting 3-pointers from the other side of the bathroom.
Stop. Just please stop.
Good timing there, Bart. Okay, so have I been recognized in bathrooms? A lot. Is it a little awkward? Yeah, especially when you're at the urinals. The rest of it is actually not even that awkward, but at the urinals, it's like having a conversation while you're doing that. But it happens, it's no big deal. What did some guy say to me the other day? Oh, and then there was a guy at the airport just the other day. This is not the official answer. This is just a fun little side tapas for you. So I meet him at the airport. I don't meet him at the airport. He comes up to me at the airport. I'm waiting for my bag, so I'm actually there for a little while. And he starts talking to me, and he starts pitching me about coming on the show, about a guy who's been arrested. And then I find out the guy who's arrested is him. And how it was wrong, et cetera. And maybe it was wrong, I have no idea. But how he's a Republican, but they arrested him anyway. And he kept saying something like, I hope I'm not giving you the heebie-jeebies. And I was like, well, you weren't until you said that. And then he said it like 3-4 more times. And I'm like, okay, brother, I got you. And I took his information, and then he followed me out to the rideshare app place, the Uber place. And then the car came, and then he's still talking to me, and he's like, as I'm trying to get into the car, because I gotta go, I have to go to get to an event. And he's like, I hope I'm not giving you the heebie-jeebies. I'm like, brother, you gotta stop saying that. Okay, it's not helping your cause at all. Okay, but the actual answer, because I did think about this earlier, such a good question. Most awkward place. Oh my God, now I forgot it. Oh no, I have to remember it. Because it wasn't the cop who arrested me. And believe it or not, it wasn't in a bathroom. Okay, I'll remember it later. That's unbelievable, I'm having a brain fart. But okay, I'll remember it as soon as you start talking, Jordan. So give me back your moment of joy.
Joy. My wife and I have gotten into kites lately. And we tried it one weekend for a kite festival. But we realized that the kites that were obtained were kids' kites, and those aren't good. So then I did my research on easy to fly kites, and I got a new Delta kite, and we went up to the park this weekend, and it was just like, it's so sick. When's the last time you've flown a kite? It is a blast.
Okay,
it's so fun.
A, that's awesome. I'm so glad I asked you. Yeah, that's perfect moment of joy, right? B, good question. I have not flown a kite since I was a 6-year-old in Turkey. And I remember that date. It's actually one of my first memories. And yes, when the kite went in the air, and it was the first time that I had even seen a kite. And they say, oh, this is a kite, and we're gonna go and we're in this park and run around and do this kite. I was like, okay with it. And then the wind picks it up and it starts going. And I remember as a kid, oh my God, I burst with joy. I couldn't believe it. That was so much fun. And that's why that memory stayed with me. And I kept thinking, we got to go back to that park. We got to fly kites again. Here we are 5 decades later, and I haven't flown a kite since. So you're making me think, well, there's a kite store in my future somewhere. So yeah.
It's awesome. It's a blast. I love it. I was giggling. It was great.
Yeah. Oh my God. If we got high and went and flew kites, is it called kiting? That sounds wrong. And
I think that sounds right. We'll go with it.
Okay. And we go kiting and we're high in 2 different ways. Oh my God, it's gonna be the time of our lives. Okay, I'm gonna put some thought behind it.
Sick.
TYT outing. Imagine a bunch of TYT hosts in your neighborhood park flying kites like,
Well, you know, guys, both of you would be high as a kite.
Okay, but somebody had to do it. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Okay, last couple ones here, but I remembered. So the awkward place where I was recognized was during this time that I called in. I needed to fill out some sort of detailed medical form. I forget if it was for insurance or whatever it was, but it had to be done over the phone, and it had to be done so with a person, right? And she would ask me questions and I would say it. And then like 3-4 questions in, she's like, oh my God, you're Cenk from the Young Turks. And I'm like, yeah, I am, and thank you. And she's like, oh, I watched the show, she's excited. No problem. But then the problem is the rest of the form was like, have you had any issues with your anus? Tell me about your sexually transmitted disease. Luckily, I don't have any of those problems. So it wasn't like thermonuclear awkward, but man, it could have been with some of those questions. And then I could tell that she was like, once she got to those questions, she was retroactively embarrassed that she recognized me. And so, or said that she recognized me. She probably not supposed to say it. Anyway, it all turned out totally fine, but it was funny. All right, last couple here, and then we got old school tonight with Michael Schur. Should you get sick just to go on NyQuil is one of our topics. Black Cat Dragon says, a big time gamer, I've been loving the new Diablo expansion. It's the little things that help us get through the days. Totally low bar. That's a beautiful thing to get excited about, and don't ever feel guilty or ashamed that you're getting excited over a little thing. It doesn't matter at all. I get excited over fantasy football. Who was it that said like, what do you guys fantasize about in that? That doesn't quite mean what it means, but anyways, that's exactly right. I love that. And I forgot to tell you guys, I asked you guys to do some things like take out a minute or 5 minutes, or if you want to go nuts, an hour to think about only positive stuff, right? So I could do that on a kind of a macro scale, but you know what? I asked my family to do it with me over dinner 2 nights ago. And I said, all right, I'm gonna put everybody on the clock and you gotta think of only positive thoughts, okay? And we all did it. And when you're counting, it feels longer. You're looking at the clock. I even had a couple of negative thoughts enter my head, and I was like, be gone, negative thoughts, okay? And went back to the positive ones. But hey, it was successful. And my mom, my wife, and my daughter all had like all these beautiful thoughts. And my daughter was like, it was easy. I just thought about our cat and how awesome he is, and for the whole minute. And I was happy. I was like, good, it worked. See, you were all happy. So try it at home, give it 1 minute. All right, Bart writes in, Lakers beating the Rockets tomorrow to wrap up the series will bring me joy. Not feeling joy when they play OKC in the next round. But hey, Bart, look at that. Lakers better than even you expected. Even down several men. Ron Artest, they were at a world peace, said they're gonna win the first round, and you were skeptical. So all of a sudden, you see?
Yeah, I live in a town called Shambles-town, and I was expecting them not to get past the first round. I'll take them winning the first. OKC, I'll just say we had a good season.
We'll see, brother. We'll see, man. Heart of a champion. Let's see what LeBron's got left in the tank. All right, last one, patience. My sister-in-law asked me 5-ish years ago what I would want to do for a living and what would bring me joy. I told her, stream myself playing my favorite video game. I took this long to convince myself to just try. I think I'm ready for my first live stream tomorrow. I'm so nervous. I haven't told those close to me, including my family, that I'm going to try doing this and going live when I have the house to myself once a week. I'm nervous because I'm afraid I'll embarrass myself, but feel so much joy that I'm going to try, because even if no one ever watches, I'll be having so much fun. Patience, that's awesome. You're crazy. So tell the TYT community, tell them on, whether it's on tyt.com/joy, tyt.com/ideas, or right now in the chat, right? And a bunch of people come support you. And it doesn't matter how good or bad you are. It's your first time it's nearly impossible to tip something over. It's almost impossible to do something great on your first effort. I mean, that's the whole point of you're supposed to put in a lot of time before you get better and better. And I remember the first show I ever did was on public access. And I liked it, but everybody else thought it sucked. And I remember on the 7th show, I panicked because I had run out of material. I always have material prepped and ready to go. Even back then I used to cut out the newspapers and highlight parts I wanted to talk about, and I would take in calls. And all of a sudden, I had gone through all my material and there were no callers. And I was like, oh. And you know what happened? I survived. And you get better by having those moments. So don't sweat any of that. Low bar in terms of expectations, just the very fact of doing it is awesome. And I love that you've got joy coming up for you. So you guys are beautiful people. I mean, who could ask for anything better? So love you guys. Jordan, thank you, brother. Lovely doing the show with you. Find that clip for me so I can get embarrassed another time by you. Okay. And everybody, like I said, at 9:30 Eastern, so in about 55 minutes, Michael Schur and I come back and do Old School for you guys. We'll see you there. I'd be worried about getting my ass blown out, right? That is a weird way of saying it.